Yeah, well, they're letting you come out. They're letting you can bunch out. They want to. There's some kind of national. Right. And, you know. Is that like never heard of it? Was that? No. Right. So we just want around. This. We don't.
Yeah, that's the. Yeah, good morning. How's it going, everybody? All right, I think we're still waiting on Brooke on Zoom, but it'll be fine. We have enough of a forum, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Awesome. All right, let's start out with the pledge of allegiance. First, we get started.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you everybody for coming. Appreciate it. It's nice to see everybody in person in the Zoom world. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it, board. We're gonna start off with our agenda as is, which was approved. We'll go to line item B, and we'll do a moment of silent reflection, please. Okay, thank you. All right, agenda item number 1, letter C, virtual attendee reminders. So reminders. Go ahead.
Thank you everyone for joining us online. Everyone has been muted upon entry into the meeting. During the presentations, please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. Your mute button is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you would like to speak or if you have a question or a comment, please use the comment section of the Zoom or use the raise your hand feature. You can do so under the reaction at the bottom of your screen or by finding your name under the participants list and clicking on the raise hand. If you are calling in via the telephone, you can press *9 to raise your hand if you have a question or comment, and press *6 to unmute yourself and then mute yourself again when you're done.
Perfect, thank you. All right, we're going to start with the roll call. We'll go remotely, and we'll start on the board, and then we'll do NDA stuff. So let's start in Elko.
Pete Paris here, Nevada Wool Growers.
Thank you. Let's go with Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, Dave Kuhn, Dairy Industry.
Awesome. Thank you. Paul, go ahead.
You're still muted, Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Paul, no, Clark County Nursery Industry.
Perfect. Mr. Shank out there, Tom.
Yeah, Craig Shank here in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, there you go. And then Brooke.
Hi, everyone. Brooke Neubauer, the supplemental food seat. I'm calling in from Laguna Beach. So sorry I'm not with you guys in person. Had a family vacation scheduled. Super excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Am I missing anybody else? That's it. For board. Okay, and then we'll start all the way down there. To the left. Dwayne, go ahead.
Dwayne Combs, range and semi-range livestock.
Charlie Frey, Churchill County crops.
Valerie Drake from Humboldt County, representing petroleum industry.
Heather Lackey, Douglas County, representing pest control.
Jim Snyder, Lyon County, Rowcroft.
Frederick Peterson, White Pine County, Summer Range Beef Production.
Woody Worthington, Douglas County, General Ag, Insurance. That covers it with me. Awesome, thank you. Brett, did you?
So we'll start with NDA staff. We'll start and go around the room this way and then we'll go remotely. Dr. JJ Goykachi, Director. Doug Ferris, Deputy Director.
Gary Russell, Public Information Officer.
Holly Rincon, Executive Assistant. Shayda Sanjuda, Meat and Poultry Inspection Project Manager.
Bill Stajewski, Administrator, Measurement Standards.
Patricia Hoppy, Administrator of Food Nutrition.
Mark Markovich, Administrative Services Officer.
Amari Behill, Administrative Services Administrator.
Peter Munchak, State Veterinarian.
Ashley Jepson, Plant Health and Compliance Division Administrator.
And Richard Yen, Office of the Attorney General.
Brittany Malley, School Nutrition Supervisor.
Tanya Wolf, Food Distribution Supervisor.
Scott Clifford, Department of Agriculture, IT Department.
I don't know if Kaylee left the room in Elko or not. Kaylee, did you leave the room in Elko?
What's that?
Did Kaylee leave? Yeah, okay,
Yeah, she's not in here.
okay.
All right, we're good. Roll call's completed. All right, we're gonna move to agenda item number 2. Oh, we can staff online. I think we still do. Okay, go ahead.
Sandy Lopez.
Andy Lopez, Public Information Officer.
And then do you want to share with the public online as well?
Sure, go ahead.
Let's start with Jennifer Edmonds. Just commented. Alyssa Townsell. Comment in the comment box if you have anyone else with you as well, please. Leanna Carey. Leanna, please also drop a comment in the box. Silver State Government Relations. Please drop a comment in the box with the names of attendants. Thank you. Nicole Hayes. Again, please drop a comment in the box if there's anyone else with you. Annie Shining K Meats. Go ahead and drop a comment in the box if there's anyone else with you. Alicia. If you could please drop your first and last name and anyone else who's with you into the comment box. And J.R. Whitfield. If you could also let us know if there's anyone else with you. Thank you.
Wait online. Let's do inside too, please. Right here, public comment.
Tina Kirk, Special Projects Coordinator with American Wild Horse Campaign.
Mark Manise with Manise Brothers in Lockwood, Nevada.
Joe Guild, producer, interested citizen.
Arresting citizen is more like it.
Perfect, Roy. We got everybody present and working on
The agenda and comment.
Awesome. Okay, now we can move to line item number 2 on the agenda. Public comment. We'll handle this like we'll start with online, online folks, and then we'll go here, and then we'll do it accordingly. So, is there any public comment online?
Nothing in the comments yet.
Perfect. And do we have any written? Absolutely. So go ahead and submit that.
This is from Jess Trask from Perigo Hay and Cattle. It says, hey there, my name is Jess and I manage my family's ranch in Ely. In 2020, we started selling beef from our ranch directly to consumers. However, we were quickly aware of the bottleneck that exists in Nevada in trying to get animals butchered. For one, our state only allows you to sell beef from a custom exempt butcher in halves or wholes. If you would like to sell beef by the cut, it has to go through a USDA butcher. We utilize Tool Valley Meats in Utah to cut our beef for us. We would love to keep this revenue in Nevada, but there's just no way to do it. In 2021, we attempted to open our own custom exempt butcher shop, but in September of 2022, we pulled our application as the NDA and NDEP could not agree upon what we all needed to accomplish in order to open. Other states have created a law that states ranchers can utilize custom exempt or state inspected butchers in order to sell beef by the cut, as long as the beef does not cross state lines. I think it would really benefit not only the ranchers of Nevada, but the consumers if we adopted the same practice. People of Nevada deserve the ability to buy local. Thank you for your time.
Awesome, thank you. Is there any other comments? That's it. Perfect. Let's start inside here. Do you guys have any public comment? Is there any public comment? All right. Hearing no more public comment, we'll go ahead and close it. All right, moving to agenda item number 3, the minutes. We have a swap of them. So board members, please take some time and take a look at that, and that's for an action. Here you go. Thank you. And board members too, we have some new people on the staff, so please state your name too for record. I know the dad would be happy to as well. When you want a possible action on this, so there's an action item. We're looking at December 14th, January 12th, and April 19th. Perfect. So say your name, please.
It's Bernard Peterson for the record. I make a motion to accept all 3 meeting agendas as they are written.
I'm Heather Lackey for the record, and I'll second that.
All right, we have a first and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion on that? All right, hearing none. The motion was to approve all December 14th, January 12th, April 19th. We have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. It's over. All right, agenda item number 4. We're going to do board updates. And we're going to start out remotely. We'll work at the top and then go around into the room with your board updates. Please, once again, state your name, who you represent, and then go ahead and give your board update. So we'll start online with Brooke.
Hello, everyone. Brooke Neubauer, Supplemental Nutrition Distribution. This is my first official board meeting. So I'll share my update, and then I would love to ask you guys if there's any other information that you guys would like to see from me for the next board meeting. I live in Southern Nevada in Las Vegas, and I found this amazing woman who graduated from UNLV last year, who was working on a pretty intensive food desert map. And so so she's doing a data project for us to map out the food deserts in Southern Nevada so that we can kind of see where the distribution sites of the supplemental food are being given out. And so we're tracking zip codes, we're tracking the unemployment rate and how many are living below the poverty line. And then we're also layering it with how many grocery stores or lack thereof, how many liquor stores, and how many convenience stores. This way, really trying to paint the picture of access to these clients that need access to the supplemental nutrition programs. And then we're going to take that and work with the local food bank, 3 Square, and layer where the supplemental food distribution sites are. and then kind of work backwards from there to figure out how many pounds are being distributed. My goal during my time on the board would really be to identify any challenges that might be in place that maybe are preventing proper efficiency with the distribution, and kind of just work with the food bank and the agency partners to kind of get a really solid plan so that the emergency food program is operating efficiently as possible. So again, I am new to this. So if you guys have any, anything that you guys think that I should be looking into, I've communicated with Shauna and Patricia about even expanding this research into cover the entire state at some point, which I think would be useful. I think that for us to just have one solid map that really shows where these pockets of town are, or our entire state, where there are, these gaps, I think it would be great to have that to move forward.
I know it's tough where you're at, so hang in there.
Yeah, sorry. But does anyone have any, I know that this is a new position on the board, I believe, correct?
Yeah, well, it was added.
So does anyone have any insight on anything that you guys would like to know about for, that I could provide for the next meeting?
I think we'll digest it, Brooke, and then get back with you for sure. We appreciate
Awesome.
that.
Yeah,
Excellent.
If anyone has any thoughts, please don't hesitate to email me and share your thoughts.
Awesome, thank you. Have a great day. All right, we'll go to Elko.
Yes, Pig Paris and Nevada wool growers. Everything seems to be going quite well right now. We got a lot of green grass. We get a little rain every day. The lambing weather was good compared to what the people in the calving industry had for weather, which we had both. So we're happy on the lambing weather. The prices are revolving a little bit, but they're still a long ways away from what they need to be for the way the economy situation is right now. The labor situation is going along, quite a bit of paperwork involved when trying to transfer herders and getting the new herders in. There's quite a bit of red tape and non-understanding and all kinds of headaches in that department. Just finishing up dock and lambs at our house, at least the percentages were favorable. We've had our share of coyotes as usual, but anyway, things seem to be rolling along pretty normal. We've been pretty busy. I have not heard a lot from other producers, so I apologize for not knowing some of their status. So anyway, that's about it for the wool growers.
Chairman, I would like to note that on June 9th at approximately 9:20, Mr. Paris used the word happy in talking about.
All right, Jake.
I'll take that. Yeah, take that down.
Well, we're gonna let that slide.
I'll get even.
Do we need to send Elko County down there to do a welfare check?
Well,
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Appreciate your update. We'll go to Paul down in Vegas.
Yes, Paul No Nursery Industry. Actually, we have been doing fairly well with the good weather we've had. It hasn't been as hot in June, obviously, as it has been the last couple of years. Our businesses at most all the nurseries is running even with or slightly higher than last year. A lot of it's because of new housing construction that has been going pretty well here. A lot of our business contractors who are landscaping new businesses and residential building that's going on. So the weather's been fairly good for us, and business has been good. The major concerns are like everybody else, seeing what's going to happen with the water restrictions once the water districts have been given, the power to limit, possibly in the past, if the lake goes down much more, they'll be able to limit the amount of water that residential housing can use. We're hoping that doesn't come down to certain businesses like the nurseries or things that have to use a lot of water to maintain their and the livestock and the animal industry as well. But we're just looking towards trying to save water as much as possible, going more with drought tolerant plant material to sell to our customers, because they're going to be restricted to those kind of things as well. And then also just keeping an eye on regulations for the chemicals that are used for spraying for insects and weeds, herbicides and insecticides, and just keeping an eye on that and making sure that we're all in compliance. So that's about all that I have to report.
Thank you, appreciate it, Paul. While we're down there, Dwayne, are you available? Or Dave, I'm sorry. Dave, sorry.
Dave Kuhn, Dairy Industry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Since our last meeting, I'm not sure there's been that much that has changed. There has continued to be a positive return to the food service industry, which is vital to our state, as we all know. So we're grateful for that improvement. We continue to be grateful for the oversight and supervision of the state in all areas of the industry, and for the things they do to keep us where we need to be and to keep everything in order. That's basically it. Thank you.
It's sorry about that. All right, Dwayne, done it then. Another one, sorry about that.
Shank needs to go, I think.
Do we need to do?
Dr. Shank.
Oh, did we? Oh, yeah, Mr. Shank, sorry about that. In Texas.
Yeah, I like Brooke. I'm new to the board, so I'm just here for the ride and trying to determine where my place is. I know with the state veterinarian, and then JJ as the director, I'm not sure who I represent. If it's the food animal veterinarians or the veterinary industry as a whole, or just here, just making sure that you're all online.
You got it, the whole.
If you got to deal with Dwayne Coombs, you got to kind of keep an eye on him and Charlie Frey. And you got two of them sitting together. That's not a good deal. But whatever I'm supposed to be doing, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just I'll be a happy participant and hopefully be able to add to the dialogue or discussion. But I don't have anything other than that, other than to say, hey, I'm new and give me direction.
Yeah.
Dr. Shank, we've assigned you the responsibility of keeping VS out of the state, so it's all on you.
Okay, I guess that's meeting adjourned early.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and Dwayne Coombs, Dr. Shank gives one of the best haircuts in the country. You can see, Craig, I need another one. So I just want to give a little update. I'll take up Craig's time from range livestock, especially northern Nevada, northeastern Nevada, and I'm sure even down into Bernard's country. We had a heck of a winter. Director Bill Kachia got a panic phone call from me around the 10th of January and saying, JJ, I think we're in a wreck. thanks to the director for going to bat for us with the governor. We got the atmospheric rivers that came through and flooded Northern California, came in and overran us, especially in the eastern part of Nevada. We had oh my gosh, I just went through and finalized my stuff with the FSA yesterday. The range turnout guys actually got hit differently than a lot of there was a lot of calving loss in down through Ruby Valley, Death area. Those guys lost a lot of calves due to the conditions. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I didn't lose a lot of calves personally. And that was because I lost the cows before the calves ever got to the ground. My final, and this is me personally, but it kind of is indicative of the folks that were wintering out in northern Nevada. I ended up losing I had about a 30% to 34% death loss on cows before I could get those cows. Probably half of that was before I got them to a feed ground, and half of that was after I got them onto a feed ground. And so it was just a really depressing, dark about 3 months there for a lot of producers, a lot of cow-calf guys in northern Nevada, and something that we talked about. I've talked about with Megan Brown, and I saw state of Utah had some resources out there for any. I'm going to be the guy that throws this out there for mental health. It was a brutal, tough, hard, lonely winter for a lot of folks, because you know how we are in agriculture. We don't talk to a lot of people, and we don't want to admit when we're in trouble. I remember a conversation I had with my neighbor to the north, who said, yeah, I'm glad you finally said that, because I thought I was the only a-hole in the country that was losing cows like that. And so it was pretty dark. Just want to give a shout out. We had a couple of, through the works of the director and the staff, we were able to get our story out. Sierra helped me with a lot with a reporter from here in Reno. We got a good article in the Gazette Journal about kind of the plight of ranchers in rural Nevada, and there was also one came out in the Elko Daily Free Press, I think first part of March, that was pretty just to let the public know, because there was a lot of folks in the public that didn't know. I think that this winter will compare in the history books with 52, 53, 48, 49, and then you go back behind that is 18, 97, 98 in Nevada for tough winters. This was just absolutely brutal. So with that, we're through it. Like Pete says, grass is growing. We got lots of grass. Lots of feed, looks wonderful today. Cows are back up, calves are bucking. Everything is in good shape. Couple other things that are on our mind that deal with range. The Lahontan cutthroat trout issues are coming up. I know Forest Service is coming out with some guidance that there's some concern with, as far as grazing use in Lahontan cutthroat trout habitat. Forest Services standards are somewhat tough to hit. A lot of times they're going to a stream bank alteration standard, which is going to be hard for producers. BLM has an EIS that's in process now, and I know Department of Ag is a cooperating agency in those discussions. And I think through BLM is really listening to the cooperating agencies and heeding that advice, and I think that document is going to be workable for us. The other thing that, and I'll stay on a happy note to start with. The horse gatherers, BLM starting up on horse gatherers right now with the impasse on the debt ceiling. They've released money to the districts to go ahead and start contracting for summer horse gatherers, and I know that's. I know for the Ghost Pequot Antelope Complex, they're gonna take at least 2,000 horses off of that, which will get them about 300% of AUM. But we're making progress. The other thing that is very concerning is BLM's proposed conservation rule that the comment period ends on the 20th of June. The problem, my biggest problem with this rule is BLM National is claiming that they don't need to cooperate with cooperating agencies, that they can just do this. And so we are having seemingly very little input in this rule. And I know Director Gokachia has testified on our behalf, and we greatly appreciate that. And this is going to be a hill to die on for us. This is the Small Business Administration has serious concerns about this from an economic standpoint for rural communities. There are so many unintended consequences. This is really scary. Anyway, so we'll just go down that. We appreciate the director's leadership on that, and I think it would behoove all of us to make sure that we get comments in for individually, because this is going to affect all of Nevadans. Whether you're in the gas business selling in rural Nevada, whether you're in the food business selling in rural Nevada, this is going to affect rural Nevada, which will have a trickle into the rest of us. So that's the other thing is, from a BLM standpoint, is BLM announced last week through what they're calling it, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. BLM has $12 million that they're going to put in Nevada, specifically Humboldt, O'Neill Basin, $6 million, the Upper Humboldt and O'Neill Basin in Elko County is getting $6 million. Montana Mountains, Humboldt County will be another $6 million. I think that this is good, but we need to make sure that it's put on the ground in a way that's productive. The other thing that's scary with this is, within the IRA, BLM has 18 months to spend this. And so how do we get this on the ground in 18 months when we don't waste 3/4 of it? And so I think that we need to know that money's there, that's being spent, and kind of keep an eye and make sure we keep in contact with those district offices and the state office to make sure those dollars are put where they're intended to go, and that is on the ground for habitat and infrastructure improvement. So I believe that's I took up enough time for me and Dr. Schenk as well. So thank you.
All right, Charlie.
Okay, good morning to the board and all the officers and directors of the board, and to the guests. My name's Charlie Frey. I represent Churchill County. The farmers in Churchill County have been going through a feast or famine problem. We now have too much water. The Lahontan Reservoir is totally full and it's getting most of their water or all of their water from Carson River. And so they've opened up the head gates at the upper end of or lower end of the Lahontan Reservoir. And that's flowing both on the north and south side of Fallon. And so far it's been doing very well. We haven't had any major flooding. I'd like to thank BOR and all the other farmers that helped dig at what we call the big dig around the south side of the government pasture. And then they also have been cleaning the canals going to the Canvasback Club. So from that standpoint, we're doing really, really well. And most of the farmers are very happy. However, we've had a lot of rain and that has been impacting the farmers because most of them have all cut their first crop hay and now it's had water on it. And that's a big problem. So a lot of the farmers have discontinued baling the hay because it doesn't make good feed. So they've been using choppers to chop the hay and build in silage pits, put it in silage pits so they can feed their cows. So that has been a problem, but they've all been doing very, very well. Most all farmers have already planted their corn, their wheat, barley, oats, and rye. And those crops are doing exceptionally well. I drove around and talked to some of the farmers and they're as happy as they can be. So with that, I think I'm done. Thank you.
I'm Valerie Drake with the petroleum industry. For the third year in a row, we've been having supply issues in northern Nevada. Just has not picked up since the pandemic. Right now, gasoline has been a huge shortage since Northern California. Their refineries have been going through maintenance shutdowns, which is an annual issue, but doesn't seem like we're keeping up in the pipeline for fuel. Diesel hasn't been too bad. We've had pretty steady pricing. But other than that, just supply issues. Other than that, I think everything's going pretty good on the fuel side. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. Heather Lackey for the record. Pest industry is very busy, as you can probably imagine, with all the water that we've had. It seems like last meeting we had, we were complaining that we didn't have any water, and now we're flooded. All the pests are pushing into everyone's homes and businesses. So it's been very busy. I've spent some time after passing SB 13 to get a hold of some colleagues and let them know that we've got some education on hand for them, some videos for them to watch and stay in compliance, and just trying to get that transition as simple as possible for people, because a lot of us run out in the field and we don't check the laws as often as we need to, so they need to be notified, and it kind of helps when you hear it before it's too late. So been busy with that, but it's going to be a big year this year, probably the next 2 years, due to the water that we've had, because it takes a little while to make it through all of the animals that we work with, insects that we work with. But I think it'll be a good year. Hearing a lot of positive feedback from people, and I'm excited. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Jim Snyder from Lyon County. And reflecting on the last 6 months, we've seen the wildest swings in weather and challenges related to the weather, from extreme drought to extreme excess of water, really. While we're getting through most of these, I think it started in January with the big storms, and our own problems were in the feedlot trying to get rid of the muck and keep the animals on high ground. And able to eat and lie down. And we went from that to delayed planting of the row crops. All the row crops got planted, I think, except on land where it was still threatened by future flooding. And the crops got off to a good start, and now the flooding is, we're in minor flooding all through the valley, with the north end of the valley seeing widespread flooding. And that has affected some of the crops there. I should point out that Lyon County and Perry and Sons Farms have done a tremendous job of building dikes and building protection for irrigation infrastructure, as well as crops, as well as for the city of Yerington. So that has been a positive thing there. Right now, now that we're trying to cut hay, we are getting the rains. It's our hay, the hay in the valley is going to be, the quality is going to be much diminished due to the rains. Whether you cut and it gets rained on, that knocks down the quality, or if you don't cut, it keeps growing and gets rank and the quality diminishes there. So hay quality is going to be a big issue. And we had some storm damage on onions this past week, heavy rains and hail that beat up some of the fields. So that's where we are with things in Lyon County. And we're going to be looking for probably another month to 6 weeks of flood conditions.
Thank you.
So I'm Bernard Peterson, semi-range beef production, White Pine County. I'll try not to impress everybody as much as Jim and some of the others. It's my grandfather, great grandparents immigrated here in the 1800s in western Nebraska. And while I was growing up there, it was always, we failed at cropping every year, pretty much between grasshoppers and drought and weeds and everything. But the idea was next year will be better.
Yeah.
Right. And every farmer and rancher that I know believes in next year. So I'm as good as conditions are right now, I'm fairly positive everyone's going to survive till next year. Eastern Nevada, I'm gonna echo so many things that Dwayne said. Was an extremely difficult winter. Livestock losses were unmatched to many producers that never experienced what we saw in Eastern Nevada this year. I think there's positives that come out of it. I saw calves, 550-pound calves on the Corn Belt Classic yesterday. They brought 306. And there's a lot of calves between 290 and 298. A lot of calves, and that set the market. I actually priced them at 335. They asked me to pull it down off the country page. I think that those markets are going to be very positive for all the producers in Nevada this year, partly because of the shrinkage in the numbers of beef cattle. So that'll be a good thing. Range conditions are such that if you're maintaining beef herd, you're going to come into good condition. Woody asked us to bring a couple of concerns to the meeting from our locals. And so I went and I talked to neighbors, I talked to businessmen in the community. And there was a couple of things. One was, yes, the Antelope Valley, the goat chutes, the horse thing. We are actually, my operation is actually impacted by that unit. And it is way highly overpopulated. We have one big allotment in that area that we haven't used in 3 years, specifically because of trespass and horse issues. And hopefully we're going to get some of those roundups done this next year. One of the other big concerns was we have a local processor, this meat processor. His biggest concern, one of his expressed concerns is we get the poultry meat inspection, USDA inspected plants, small plants, custom plants in the state going, is that if he's not willing to become USDA inspected, I'm going to put him out of business. That's his biggest concern because he has got a thriving business today. He is busy, to get a steer in his front door is at least a 4-month wait right now. He's extremely busy, yet he is not USDA inspected, so his big concern is, are you going to try to put him out of business? And I said, well, I'll ask, because I don't know what the process will be. So it's out there on the table now. The other big concern is, I'm not sure where the NDA can be involved in this, or how far you can push. But everywhere I look and everybody I talk to, because we do have an excessive amount of precipitation, we see noxious weeds. We see noxious weeds everywhere in the county, and every county that you drive through. And a lot of those areas have gone untouched for years and years and years because they weren't visible. They weren't being treated. But with these high moisture years, we're going to have a massive influx of noxious weeds. They're going to get carried everywhere with heavy equipment. And I think that needs, the local weed districts, they need support, and we need to address that.
That's it. Perfect. There's only 2 today. Good. Woody Worthington for the record, General Ag for Douglas County. Just like kind of know everybody, yes, we didn't have no water, now we have water. I never thought to be a bagger back in Douglas County, but there is. It's showing up today, a dropper and a bagger. So the plight of a farmer and a rancher, right? So I'm going to touch on a little bit different kind of direction. I've been all over the state last, I guess, 8 months. I've been to all 17 counties, working with a lot of ag literacy folks out there. I commend everybody. I think we're at about 33,000 students teaching them about where their food comes from. It takes a village. It takes a lot of people to do that. And I commend Nevada Farm Bureau, cattle women, Western Nevada cattle women, Lahontan Valley cattle women, the extension. It takes a lot of people to do that. But what's really exciting to know is, unfortunately, with the COVID, I think it's sprouted up this concern of where our food comes from. So we have a lot of new people on the radar, a lot of superintendents, a lot of principals that are really on board throughout the county, and the support is there too as well. So that's super exciting. That's gangbusters there. We're building that program back up to for the ag literacy stuff. So that's basically about what I got for my update. And then we'll go ahead and move on to the agenda. Number 5, Mr. JJ Gogachi.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Gogachi, for the record, I was busy taking notes while these guys were talking because it definitely changes my director's report. Just to start, I'll dovetail a little bit on the winter storms and flooding. So Division of Emergency Management did activate early this year when we had those atmospheric rivers. And at that time, most of that impact was seen in Northeast Nevada. So I spent quite an extended period of time, most of the month of March, out there in the rurals. And again, we were dealing with what Mr. Coons had talked about. We were already seeing a lot of death loss, and we had some livestock trap, sheep and cattle. And so we were fortunate enough to build those partnerships with the ag community and with our local county governments and with our emergency managers, and do some emergency moves in places, some emergency reconstruction, get some equipment where it needed to be. All the while we were working with the USDA Farm Service Agency, FSA, trying to see what we were going to have for programs, looking for additional programs. I was one of 4 Western directors that signed on to a letter to the administrator of FSA asking for more flexibility, asking them to, as these guys came forward and we knew they'd come forward, you just heard Dwayne say he's just finishing up his paperwork and we're into June. They granted that variance. They didn't have a lot of tools in the toolbox, so it was interesting. They declared emergencies for drought while we were going through the atmospheric river, but that is something that they had. So as an aside, you guys will find this interesting as well. This week I received another letter from Secretary Vilsack. Douglas County has now received an emergency declaration earlier this week for drought. So Access to programs is access to programs. I'm going to work at getting the USDA access to weather information, apps, and the news as well. It may be helpful, but that will open the door for 8 months for those producers in Douglas and contiguous counties for low interest loans. So that pulls in Lyon, Washoe, and then it pulls in 4 counties in California as well. So we are actively working there. We have been partially activated through DEM again most of last month for the situation in Lyon County and Douglas County. As ESF 11, myself, Deputy Director Ferris, and Dr. Bill, almost daily, we're on phone calls and briefings, trying to assist where we can. What do they need? What does our ag community need? We're keeping a close eye on Lyon County, obviously. And Jim, you kind of beat me to it, but Perry and Sons really has demonstrated what the agricultural community is all about. And they're just one of many. They got in there, they use their own equipment, they're using their own iron and their manpower, and they're building levees and diverting water and doing what needs to be done, assisting Lander County. That same thing was done in Elko, White Pine, Humboldt, Eureka earlier in the year. And the ag community should be proud of the people that we are and that we represent. We don't ask for anything, we go and get it done. And then if there is something available, we'll work on that on the back. So very, very honored to be representing the Department of Ag, and we've got a good team here, and we are working forward with DEM on that. We're keeping a close eye on the Walker River Paiute Tribe and Shures. We do expect some additional impacts down there as it makes its way, that high water does, through Yerington and the Mason Valley, but we are actively involved. Just a few other things. That wasn't all that was going on when we had a legislative session going on as well during that same time. 2 individuals down here at the end, Amara and Marco, right after the last time we were all in this room, when you guys agreed to appoint me as the director, we went back and we had a meeting and we realized that we had to rebuild our budget. It had been submitted erroneously with a lot of errors in it, and Governor's Finance Office gave us until the 7th of March from the 12th of January to rebuild a $200 million budget. And they did it. And it's right. Now, I can't thank them enough, and they put in a lot of hours and a lot of time. They worked with all of our administrators, some of which were just in the acting capacity through most of that. But we got it done. We answered some very tough questions at the legislature. We still don't know exactly what some of that will look like, even though all the budget bills are passed. We will be going down next Tuesday, meeting with Governor's Finance Office again on some questions on where some of this ARPA money is going to be, what some of these programs will look like, and what our staffing is going to look like. So even though the legislative session is over, we came out in really good shape as far as an agency, considering where we started the session. We do have a few unanswered questions. And as soon as we have those, Mr. Frey, we will be sharing those with the board on what our budgets actually are going to look like for the next year. When we scheduled this meeting, he said, "Oh, that's plenty of time. We'll have a week after session to get all this together." The dust is still settling and the fur is still flying in Carson City, so we don't have all those answers yet. We are working on closing our budgets, and these guys will talk to you guys a little bit later in the meeting on that and what that process looks like. I'm not going to steal my administrator's thunder when it comes to actual bills that were there. We worked on the Neonic bill extensively, the Kratom bill. SB 13 was a bill of our own that it seems like every time it came up, we had to say, no, it's good. We need that. It's amazing that there's actually good legislation at times that we want, but we had to push that through. SB 90, the wild horse bill, I don't think I need to elaborate on that. We've heard from all of you guys from the board, and we heard from you during that process as well. That we did pull as part of that budget process, the agency-wide inspection program off the table. That was in the budget that was submitted. It was a large amount of money. And again, because the budget was kind of built upside down, that was pulled. We're in the process of going back through, and Ashley Jepson is working on pulling some inspection software together, and we will be doing some requests for proposals on individual programs within some of these divisions and standing that up, but it will not be a state or it will not be an agency-wide inspection program, as you may have heard in the past. On the national front, Dwayne alluded to it a little bit. I did testify on May 24th before the subcommittee on oversight and investigations at a hearing entitled Examining Biden Administration Efforts to Limit Access to Public Lands. That was my testimony, was 95% on that BLM conservation rule. We have a lot of concern about that. Governor Lombardo is very concerned about it. He wanted the state of Nevada at the table, and he wanted someone there to represent the state of Nevada. And he selected me as the agricultural and natural resource guy to go back there and have that conversation. So we are very appreciative for that opportunity. We got a lot of good stuff on the record, written testimony. You guys can find it online. If any of you guys want some help with that, I'm more than happy to send you what we did prepare, and as well as a link to the actual hearing on that day. Today, Megan Brown and I were emailing feverishly this morning back and forth. There's a draft letter we're trying to get out today that will be signed by the directors of NDA, Conservation Natural Resource, and NDOW, pretty much asking Interior to pull that rule back and start over. So that letter, we are working on that. We have had input from those three agencies as well as stakeholders. We had involvement of the Nevada Cattlemen's Association, some mining groups on there, and our lobby team in Washington, DC. So it's a brief ask, it's a short ask, it's very to the point. If you want to do this, we expect you to have stakeholder involvement, including the local government, state agencies, and the public, and go forward in the right way. So stay tuned for that, and as that comes out, we'll be sure to share that with the board members. And again, we're hoping for later today. In addition to that, I'd made 2 other trips to Washington already in the last 4 months. So all 3 of these trips were within about 4 weeks. So I don't even know what time zone I'm in sometimes. But we talked a great deal on the farm bill. The agency has submitted some requests for the farm bill, mainly around the sage grouse conservation proposal, where we can use EQIP on our federal lands adjacent to private property where those same practices are occurring. There's a bottleneck there. And you heard Mr. Coombs talk about $6 million here, $6 million there to get it on BLM land. We have additional money that comes through NRCS in the form of EQIP that we're not being able to use probably the right way. When you have a fence line and you stop, it doesn't really do good for the wildlife that's coming and going on both sides of that fence. So we have an ask in for that. We also have an ask in to further fund the vaccine bank for foot and mouth disease. We have been working greatly on a pilot project. What will grazing on public lands look like in a foreign animal disease outbreak, mainly foot and mouth disease? I was selected to sit on that and represent a Western state and Western producers on when we have a 72-hour stop movement, which will turn into a lot longer times. I'm sure Dr. Pete will let you know. Where do we go with those cows that are on the range? You don't put them on the shelf. If it's a stop movement, you're out of permit. Do you go back? Is there some available forage somewhere? Do we set up facilities there? These are all things the federal government hadn't really thought about for Western producers. So the Department of Ag is taking a leadership role in that as well. Excuse me. And then veterinary stockpile funding. We know we need that. And so we've asked for increased funding on that level as well through the farm bill. Or at a minimum, we're hearing there's not going to be increased funding, then leave it at the levels it was 5 years ago. And we'll continue to build that stockpile and continue to build that vaccine bank. And then on my other trip back here, we talked about the conservation rule, farm bill priorities, wild horse impacts, farm service relief, and then some NEPA concerns that we had. And then we actually did. I was fortunate enough to participate in the Environmental Stewardship Award Program, and a ranch family from Lyon County was a regional finalist on there, and the Fullstone family, they did come up short of winning the national award, but it was pretty neat to see a ranch from Nevada as one of 6 finalists on the national level, and demonstrating what we do in agriculture in Nevada as private and public lands and that stewardship. So just in closing, Mr. Chair, a few internal notes to make. Dr. Bill Strajewski was promoted to the Administrator of Measurement Standards on May 1st. Holly Rincon was hired as my executive assistant, and she began on the 15th. So we've thrown her to the wolves rather quickly. Patricia Opie was promoted to Administrator Division of Food and Nutrition on May 18th, but she has been doing a wonderful job all the way since the end of last calendar year, serving in that capacity already. So she has really hit the ground and running. I promoted Doug Ferris just last week to the Deputy Director position, so he has moved up front. So there will be a vacancy in animal industry for an administrator there. And I think in his update, he'll give you a little more insight into what that might look like after the legislative session as well. So he's doing double duty. I was doing double duty until Monday. And at what point, Dr. Peter Munchkin, we sniped him from Arizona to come up here. Pete and I both started our state veterinary careers in 16. And so I knew Dr. Pete from Arizona and had a good working relationship with him. And we're very fortunate that we were able to convince him that Nevada is a good place to be. So he started on the 5th. He's got to meet with USDA here in about an hour or so. I might just ask him to come up real quickly and introduce himself when I'm done, because he probably won't have a chance to be here when Doug goes for animal industry. And he will be based out of our Las Vegas office to give us a little more coverage down there. And I think this is probably the first time in a long time we'll have 3 veterinarians on staff, including myself. So we can do a better job of covering the state and responding to what's needed. And then one final hire, our ag literacy coordinator. We did offer that position, and Shelley Hulsey Pope out of Douglas County will begin on July 18th in that. That has been vacant for a while. And so she will report to duty in about a month, and we're very excited to get her out, do some outreach as far as ag literacy goes. We're hoping to expand that, build in a BQA type thing. Nevada has no beef quality assurance educator at this time. We are willing to take that on. I think we have individuals that underneath her, if she is the trainer, can go out and provide that training in addition to the ag and the classroom stuff. And you heard Woody talk about this void we have now about where our food comes from. And after the pandemic, a lot of nervous people. And so I'll have Bill come up and or not Bill. I guess you can speak from there if you want, or from here, wherever you want. We had a lot of questions on meat inspection this morning. So I will tell you that later on today, during this meeting, Shada will be giving you guys an update on that. We have some very exciting news on where we're going with that. We have hit the throttle since January 12th. And we will be going to workshop very, very, very soon on those meat regs. So I think we finally got to a good place yesterday on the language. So Pete, thank you. Thanks, you bet. I know it's out of order, sir, but if you would indulge us so he can.
Real quick.
You have questions for me?
Yeah, is there any questions for JJ?
That's right.
Board, is there any questions for JJ?
I have one.
Yes, sir. I knew you would.
Charlie Frey from Churchill County. Could you give us an update on the horses, wild horses in Virginia range? And there's been, are you gonna do that? Oh, I'll wait.
We will have a bit on that, absolutely, sir. And I would like to thank Valerie for, when we had our little pipeline mishap, I reached out to her earlier this year just to make sure we didn't have any. I wanted her to know exactly what we were dealing with. Because everybody took a really deep breath there for a few minutes. We didn't know if we already had a supply chain issue. Dr. Bill handled that lovely. So I guess
It got taken care of quickly. Thank you, guys.
It did. So we've been activated 3 times since January, Division of Emergency Management. So that's not a good thing. Now they figured out we're over here. Any other questions for me?
Thanks, JJ. I appreciate it. Oh, you do? Oh, wait, you're good.
You got something later, Bernard? Okay, we'll go to the hallway if you need to eat on me a little bit.
Thank you much. Appreciate it, JJ, what you're doing. You've been here how many weeks?
Oh, heck, we're in the months now. We almost got 5 months now.
Awesome. Awesome job. Good job. Thank you. All right, sir. The floor is yours.
What's mine? Well, Mr. Chairman, board, glad to be on board. JJ and I did have a talk about this position. I originally was in Arizona, like he said. I came in just before JJ in 15 as an assistant state vet. We lost our state vet while I was there. We were kind of under an interim, kind of like JJ was for a while. So I was acting state vet and then became state vet in Arizona. One of JJ's big concerns was that I work with industry, and I hope to get to meet all of you in person and work with all your industries around the state. It's one of the things I did do in Arizona. You know, we had a pretty strong dairy industry, chicken industry too down there, as well as our beef industry. And much like your beef industry, ours was all over the place. You guys hugged all the water this year. Arizona's still in a drought, so you know, maybe the letter went to the wrong state. I don't know. It's supposed to go down to Arizona, it's one of the counties. But you know, they're all struggling down there for water. The atmospheric rivers that hit the west did not come south much more than like Flagstaff. So we're getting some flooding now in the Phoenix area because everything drains down into the valley from the Muslim River on down. So we are starting to get some little bit of flooding off and on. Phoenix area is doing pretty good. You get down to the southern part of the state and they're still pretty dry. So, but yeah, I understand, want to get to know all the industries here, how things work in Nevada, and trying to get around the state. Like I said, I'll be based out of the Vegas office, but plan on probably doing a lot of window time to get around the state and see what's going on. And disease control, kind of the big thing that we have. Talked to Dr. Shank about keeping BS out of the state. I agree. But we want to keep TB out of the state too, and a few other things. So,
Excuse me, what is BS?
the stickler stomatitis virus.
Is there a common name?
Is
Yes.
that's a common name. It's a term. It's basically spread. It's a virus basically spread by bitches. So we had it quite a bit in Arizona, New Mexico, because we'd see it come up from Mexico up the riverbeds and then kind of head north. Usually it's kind of a weird year this year for that, because usually California doesn't get too infected. And for this year, it seems to have started in Southern California and moving up. So we'll kind of have to wait and see how that, it'll either do one of two things. It'll either flare up and become all over the place, or it will be a short fizzle and die. So we had it a couple of years ago in Arizona, and it moved up into Colorado, Utah in the summertime. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Thank you.
So just add on, Pete, we're waiting for a new situation report this morning. I haven't seen it. I don't think you've seen it either, but it hasn't come out yet. But from earlier in the week, there's been 62 premises in California quarantined to date. The problem is it's in 4 counties, and one of those counties is right against Clark County. So we have put in some additional entry requirements coming from California for all susceptible species, not just horses. It mainly affects horses. Probably 95% of our clinical signs are in horses. Clinical signs mimic foot and mouth disease. That's why it's of concern. Even though horses don't get foot and mouth disease, that's a whole other story. But there has been one premise in California that did have beef cattle on it. And it's been called the suspect at this time because they did not actually get hands on those and sample those to make sure that it was VSV, but they have horses that were positive on the same premises. So it is in horses and cattle in California at this time. And he says it's, sand flies, black flies, and midges that transmit this with all the water. They're moving. We do not need a big southwest wind right now. That's the last in Las Vegas. But most of our venues, South Point's been very good to deal with. They put additional requirements in above ours. They're checking every horse that comes in for lesions upon arrival, twice a day temperature checks as well, and looking for oral lesions and hoof lesions while they're on the premise. We did the same thing at a barrel racing here last week, and we all know the Reno Rodeo starts next week, and they are aware. Any horse that comes from California, any cattle that come from California have to have a health inspection within 7 days.
And yeah, and then it's so yeah, we'll kind of see what it does. Like you said, it mimics foot and mouth disease, which is our big concern in the beef industry. And we did have a couple cases in Arizona with cattle affected as well. So it can affect the cattle. Makes you kind of a little concerned when you go out and look at cows with blistery lesions, wondering what the heck is going on, so.
Thank you.
Hand raised online. You have a hand raised online. A question online, Dr. Fink.
Go ahead, Mr. Shank.
I just wanted to make a comment on vesicular stomatitis because it can be transmitted to people. I think there's a little concern there. We certainly don't want it amongst our horses and some of our other species, but oftentimes people overlook the fact that we can get it. So we want to kind of keep a track on it.
Service announcement there. If you have an animal with the lesions, do not handle them without gloves. Because you can get it. That's you can get it from active lesions in your animals. It is a zoonotic disease. But you can handle.
Don't get any other questions on that light note there. We appreciate you coming on board. There's plenty of country out there to run around and check out. I'm sure you got a couple of days, some windshield time for sure. So appreciate you coming in and supporting us, especially JJ. I know he was man, am I excited. That's awesome.
Next week, I will be in Wyoming for the Western States Livestock Animal Health meeting, and I'm actually on the board of the executive committee for USAHA as well. So I'll be president in a couple of years for that fine group.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go to agenda item number 6. We're gonna do, that'll be Patricia Hope.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tricia.
Good morning. For the record. Inspector of Food and Nutrition. So there's a lot here, as you can see, it's like 3 pages. I thought I would hit the high points, and I also have some updates that didn't make it into the report in time. Looking under the pending matters of significance. AB 319 is the free school meals bill. So we do know as of Sunday that bill did pass the Senate. We don't know what's going to happen at this point, but it has passed for school year 24-25, and they did appropriate 43 million for that. No knowledge of where that's coming from yet, but it is coming to us from what we understand, because the Assemblywoman did do an amendment that changes the agriculture and also changed the appropriation ballot. Let's see. I'll move on to page 2, community nutrition. We have started our summer food service program, which is a really important program that serves children when they're out of school. Another that kind of connects to one of the pending matters of significance, where this particular year USDA provided permanent non-congregate feeding sites for tribal communities and rural areas, which obviously at the frontier state, that's a huge deal for Nevada. And so it enables all of these sites that are in very rural and remote areas where they may not have a lot of children, or transportation access could be, you know, up to an hour or more to get their children to a site. They are allowing what we call grab and go meals for up to 5 days. And we have a lot of sponsors that we have approved that are doing that. And so our program staff are on the trek across the country for about the next 4 weeks, because one of the requirements for these sites is they have to be evaluated and monitored for program requirements within the first couple of weeks that they start. So they're having fun visiting a lot of sites and getting busy so that we can get children fed as fast as possible through this program. Part of that program is also we submit a management and administrative plan, which includes funding for our state agency for administration and operations. It also includes operations funding for our sponsors. It includes paying for reimbursing for health inspections, for meal reimbursements and things. And so we asked for a pretty big ask this year over the amount that they asked states to do. And we have really good justification, partially because of our rural state. And so we actually were awarded everything that we asked for. And that was wonderful for us because of what we have to do. Food distribution program, that's our household programs. for seniors and families, like the Emergency Food Assistance Program, the Commodities Program for seniors. It also includes one of our popular programs, the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. So we've been busy. This was a program area that really came to bear when the pandemic hit. What feels like so many years ago, 3 years in. So you can see their stats here. An update to the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which is bullet number 3. Both of our northern and our southern regions have gotten all of their coupon booklets distributed. And as you can see from our notes, we were awarded additional federal ARPA funds that we requested that we did a justification for. So we received an additional $164,000 over what we normally would get. And it enabled us to raise our coupon booklet value from $45 to $50 and also distribute a lot more booklets. And this will last for 2 years, which normally our funding is annual. So that's a really good thing that happened with our program. And so both of them are going strong. Everything's been, we've met with partners. We have farmers on board that are certified. And so that's active in both regions. And then the bullets after that pertain to the state ARPA funding that we have. We have a grant that's called the Nevada Community Food Access Grant. We had one round of funding that was about $500,000. And then subsequent to that, we got a second round of funding, which is what we call round 2. So that's about $6 million. Those are both going strong. We have a lot of money out there. It enabled us to bring on partners that we've never worked with before in the state. It enabled us to fund much smaller programs that had never had the opportunity to get some of the federal funding, some of our regular programs. And we have, those funds are obligation 24, liquidation 26. So we still have plenty of time and they're moving all along. We also awarded $3 million in state ARPA for what we call a rural food hub to Food Bank of Northern Nevada. And this is primarily geared to underserved rural and tribal communities and looking at infrastructure because there's such an important access issue out there. There's a lack of transportation issue out there. And so they are working on a hub in that area. You know, kind of we have Reno as a hub and we have Vegas as a hub, and then there's kind of nothing else, right? And we have a lot of organizations out there and a number of populations. So they're in a planning stage. It's a 2-phase project for them. The first year is a planning stage that was approved where they're having listening sessions, they're having town halls, they're touring around, getting community feedback. They're also getting feedback from partners that are already in some cases distributing for the Emergency Food Assistance Program, as well as our Commodity Supplemental Food Program. So they're gathering a lot of information to figure out what we really need to do and what that infrastructure looks like. There's a lot on the table from, building a warehouse to, purchasing vehicles and trucks for transportation, purchasing smaller refrigerated vehicles for partner organizations. So we have a lot on the table that we're looking at that we want to make sure we make the right decision. Home Feeds Nevada, that guy's favorite program. Home Feeds Nevada is rolling along. We've had some changes. We've had some growing pains. We're up to about 612,000 right now. We are using the federal funds of the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program that we were awarded last year. We had 3.6 million. We're using those funds to fund Home Feeds Nevada. It's ever evolving. I pulled a few demographics this morning. Right now with our active producers, we have approximately 8 small producers, what we would consider small. We have about 5 medium producers, and we have 2 socially, what they would consider socially disadvantaged producers, which is a big push of the Local Food Purchase Assistance piece, the federal grant funding that we're using. And so every day we're trying to bring more on board to get people that are already doing this in our state to be able to participate in the food purchasing and distribution program. And all of this goes to our 2 food banks, which are Food Bank of Northern Nevada in Reno and 3 Square Food Bank in Southern Nevada. So we're going strong there. As you can see from just a general list, we have a lot of really neat products, a lot of different products that people may not have thought about, like pickled carrots and pasta sauce that Nevada produces. So we're bringing in a lot of variety. We have more meat producers coming on board, which is really, really important because meat proteins are very difficult for our food banks to get in our state. And so we're working with a lot of small producers, getting them some business and giving them some purchasing power, and also supplementing our food banks with items that we don't even get from a lot of our federal programs. So we'll be able to provide some different products. We do have a capital improvement project going on with State Public Works in our Reno food warehouse. We're having all of our freezer and refrigerated container boxes replaced, and also having a generator replaced and brought in. We're about a week behind on that project, but we're doing really, really well. I was there yesterday. All the concrete has been poured. Everything worked well. They had a little bit of problems with humidity, but those are getting worked out. And so they're getting ready to install the installation, a little behind, and then start putting in the top framing. We heard from the vendor that next week, all of our freezer and refrigerated boxes should be delivered to the site, God willing, and the creeks don't rise. I probably shouldn't have said that. Texas, so I grew up on a cattle ranch, so the creek kind of rose already. So hopefully it doesn't affect our boxes and they arrive safely. School nutrition, everybody probably is aware of school nutrition. We're knocking it out of the park. So we have the state ARPA funding that we received that is providing free school meals for this school year that just ended. So that's going strong. You have some numbers there that we've provided you that show you the difference of what our federal funding is and what our state ARPA funding is funding. And this is the actual program that I discussed at the beginning of my presentation with AB 319, that this program will be funded for the next school year of 24-25. And then farm to school, we were lucky enough to get a non-competitive farm to school grant. We've really struggled with farm to school here at the state. We've never had resources for that particular program, although it's really important. We've never had the opportunity to really get it off the ground. And so we received an $850,000 farm to school grant, thanks to Brittany Malley and her staff over there, School Nutrition, getting that for us. We also were able to hire a full-time contract position for 3 years. So we feel very hopeful and cautiously optimistic about improving farm to school in the state. And we're looking to put a strategic plan together. We're obviously working with Woody at Farm Bureau. We're also pulling in a lot of our farmers that we have now through Home Feast Nevada, because part of it is an education piece between farmers and school children, and looking to build a statewide network for that. So we're really excited about that. I think that's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Patricia? I have a comment though. It was pretty rad. I had a producer north of the state, we won't be specific, but said, hey, I had some products that we need to move. They got them all lined out. Everything was good to go. How do we get it there? So JJ made a couple phone calls and the truck showed up and they picked up that protein for that, that producer. I just want to commend you.
Yeah.
You and your staff as well as JJ on it. It's Nevada's taking care of Nevada's.
1,500 pounds.
1,500 pounds.
1,500 pounds in a couple of
Going to
days
the-
over the weekend.
Yeah, that was remarkable. That's some of the stuff that they're doing behind the scenes, but that's just
Thank
what I
you.
wanted to bring that up to. Any other questions or comments? Welcome aboard. Congratulations on
Thank
your
you,
job.
John. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, we're gonna take a 15-minute break. Yeah. Keeping up and going over. Yeah. Okay.
Guys have been having a hard time. Yes.
We don't have a. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. We're gonna call this meeting back to order. Please.
Yeah.
Are we back online? All connected? Cleaning up my donut mask. All right, here we go. All right, thank you, Patricia, once again on your board report. We're gonna move to agenda item number 7, measurements and standards. Bill. Our new administrator.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, Bill Spajewski, Administrator Measurement Standards. The first big full meeting since December, and I see that you led off with the 2 most junior administrators on the agenda. Like Patricia, I attempted to give a robust review in the packet for you, an update on items, and so now I'm just going to add some other facts that I didn't feel like seem to need to include in the printed update, and some other updates that have happened since submission. On the topic of the measurement standards budget, ours was, I want to thank Haynes, my predecessor, for preparing such an ironclad budget. Ours was quite non-controversial, and as far as I know, everything in terms of enhancements that made its way to the governor's recommended budget has been approved, hopefully, and that will go a long way towards replacing outdated equipment, purchasing more equipment, and helping us as a division do our mandated duties. In the category of the pending matters of significance, I only, I think as I wrote, the ongoing diesel filter clogging issue has been conquered to everyone's relief. And the only thing that I'll add on this is that over the time that we worked on this, I found out that one of my colleagues in Iowa was having a similar issue. And so we compared notes, and Kinder Morgan and Afton and other groups who had done some testing on fuels in Northern Nevada were kind enough to allow us to share some of their test results. And this winter, I was called by someone with Magellan Pipeline who was interested in what we had done and how the issue had been solved. I can't say that we solved the issue. But so, hopefully we helped the industry in another part of the country, which was kind of nice as well, and so next time we have a problem, I'll look to them and hopefully they can help us solve it. So the second issue was, in terms of advertising and accuracy of fuel prices and signage and so on. Well, this began to become a bigger issue during the winter, not because of that, but it's just something that I took on when I became the interim administrator. And as I wrote in my review, we're going to kind of take a step back from taking immediate action because we found this really needs more work. When I did a thorough review of the language in NRS 590, as I wrote, I found that most of this was entirely unchanged from when it went in 70 years ago. A couple words here and there had been changed, but nothing of substance. And so just to give you a little bit of context on what our inspectors are finding that really need to be addressed, gas station signs on the highway, making sure that those are large enough and legible enough for the drivers, which sort of falls into a loophole in the current language. Other electronic signs, including ensuring that their backgrounds are readable at all times of the day, and signs that alternate between cash price and credit price, that those are given sufficient time on each so that the consumer is aware. And loyalty programs, right? Supermarkets that give you discounts, or car washes, convenience stores that maybe have attached car washes and you get a discount for that. None of that is handled. And maybe not all of it needs to be, but really that section needs a pretty significant updating. In addition, I had again reached out to a number of my colleagues, and so I had gotten 10 or 12 responses from around the country, from states of different mentalities politically, I will say, and found that, boy, our language is about as exacting as anybody's. And some of that is valid, and we will need to maintain that, I think. But in other cases, I think it's unnecessarily so, and might be prohibitive. I mean, if you recall Cadence's report from December, I'm sure she spoke about it. When we met with the Convenience Store Association, they just had their hands like, what does this section mean? And in a couple of those, we had to grapple ourselves. So, the final point I'll make on this is that, there are national fuel companies who have thousands of stations around the country. And if they have X number in Nevada, my goal is not to saddle them with unnecessary requirements that are specific to us. So again, when the dust hopefully finally settles from the legislative session, I will put together, I'll reach out to a number of stakeholders, you, Valerie, and Paul Anderson, et cetera, and let's work through this and come up with some new language that we can present as a BDR in the next legislative session. Electric vehicle testing. I am increasingly glad that, again, Cadence made the decision for us to sort of be neutral on this for the time being and not, and have a waiver from regulating these. Because it's an interesting big topic that is changing quickly. It's very much the Wild West at the moment. We have purchased a tester, which is now down in Las Vegas. We have mapped all the locations of charging stations in Las Vegas, but we found that many of those are behind gates. So we don't have immediate access to them. So we need to work through that. Payments are done universally through apps. And I say apps because there are any number of them. So as we go to test those, we might be, it's not a large charge. It's only, I think $3 to $5 is what I've been quoted just for the amount that we need to do the testing. But we're going to be, they'll be coming from a lot of different sources. And so we want to make sure that our fiscal friends are aware about where all these are coming from. And also, boy, this is the big thing. There's two different types of testing, right? There's AC testing, which is the slower testing, even commercially. And that's fine. We can do that with our current test unit, and we are not alone in this. However, DC charging, which is, the fast half an hour to get a full charge, you need a receptacle to put that charge in. And this is referred to colloquially as the man in the middle testing. And that man is an electric vehicle, which we don't have. So, maybe that will be an enhancement in the 25 budget. But so, these are things that we're sort of, coming to grips with and trying to prepare for. And again, there are a couple of states who are well ahead of the curve, California and New York. And I will be seeing those folks in the next couple of months at conferences and get a better feel for how this is really working at ground level. But many of our fellow states, regionally and nationally, are in the same boat that we are, that they have a testing unit and they kind of have an idea what they're doing, but they're struggling through a number of issues here. So we will, this will develop and this will, get solved, but there are a number of outstanding issues to be concerned with. Livestock scale inspections began this week out of the Sparks office, doing more local inspections. We are still working on some of the scheduling, especially the scheduling for the for what would be done out of the Elko area. And I'll speak a little bit more about staffing in a moment, but much of this has to do with onboarding new staff in Elko, and a lot of the inspections will be done using staff either out of the Sparks office or out of the Las Vegas office, and none of those inspectors have ever done scales from the Elko area. So while we have them, we do have the locations through GPS. There's obviously going to be issues to work through there, and maybe a bit slower than we're hoping for. So we are attacking it, but it's going to be a learning summer for everybody, including yours truly. We've also run into an equipment issue that we hope can be rectified quickly as well. Elko testing is set to begin about this time next month after the holiday. All right, staffing in the Sparks office. I was hoping to tell you that we had a new inspector and a new seasonal position, and both were filled. They were last week. Unfortunately, we ran into some complications with the seasonal, and that person did not work out. And the inspector tendered his resignation earlier this week, so that will continue. So we are one inspector FTE down in Sparks' office. However, in the Elko office, while we haven't been able to fill the seasonal position, we have been able to fill the Inspector 3 position, which has been empty since the end of 2022. And not only were we able to fill that position, but we were able to fill it at the Inspector 3 level. So that is great news. And a second candidate has been hired for the other position in Elko, which is normally an Inspector 2, but has been underfilled as an Inspector 1 until that individual gets their CDL. And both of these individuals will begin on June 26th. So we're really excited for that. And it appears that they both are very enthusiastic as well. So that's great news. In terms of administrative rulemaking, I'll only say that for file RO38-21, which was the regulations surrounding the sale and supply of E15 gasoline. That was heard by the Legislative Commission on December 28th of last year and filed with the Secretary of State the next day on the 29th. But to date, we have no stations in Nevada that are selling E15, but there is more interest, so I expect some to come online at some point. The other outstanding LCB file is R070-22. I really have nothing more to add about this than what I provided in the update in your packet. My final two items, one just about the metrics given in the program updates. The only things that I'll say is that the devices inspected are somewhat lower, but for very practical reasons, lower than we'd like. One is that there are two inspectors who were taken out of the field for part of their time because they were attending CDL school during the spring and preparing for the CDL test. The good news is that both of them have passed. And so now they are working on catching up on their device inspections. And that, understandably, the numbers for the Elko office are lower than we would like, affected by the staffing challenges I spoke about a moment ago. We expect, again, especially once livestock scale inspections are completed, that those numbers will return to the level that we expect them to be at. And then finally, in the previous few years, Cadence and I had worked very closely with staff with the Governor's Office of Energy, starting about this time of year, preparing for and dealing with California wildfires. Certainly, as Valerie well knows, in recent years, PG&E has used as one of their strategies the public safety power shutdowns, which is an issue for the fuel industry in Northern Nevada, because to push fuel from through the pipeline from the Bay Area into Sparks, there's a pumping station in Cisco Grove. If they shut down the power there, fuel doesn't move very well. And Governor's Office of Energy is in control of ESF 12, but we were support for them since we had the contacts with the pipeline and so on. Even as of last year, the four people working on it were myself and Cadence and Lorraine Walzer and another woman from GOE. I'm the only one left standing. So I reached out to the deputy director over at GOE this week and just said, hey, I'd like to know who to talk to. Your folks may know some of this, they may not, but it's about that time. And so I am hoping that we can meet soon. And I had forgotten to mention this in your board packet. I had talked about upcoming interviews to fill my old Chemist 5 position. And indeed, we are having 3 interviews on Tuesday. And all 3 candidates are very well qualified. I feel fortunate, to have that. Because of schedule and the onboarding process, I am hoping that the chosen candidate will start on July 10th. So, and that is my update, and I am happy to entertain any questions that the board has.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
When you have a customer complaint, do you respond correctly back to that customer and let them know what you have found?
I will say that almost universally, yes. And the only reason I say that is that we ask them, hey, are you just letting us know this? Or would you like to know the results?
Okay.
And, overwhelmingly people do. Yes.
That's what.
Yes. And I guess I will say this on the subject of complaints. We have long had an online fuel complaint form on the division page of the department website, but we've been working with Scott Clifford to update that as well, because that was getting creaky, 12 or 13 years old, and when we set it loose, it's going to actually be for the entire division. Will include scale complaints, price verification complaints, etc. So hopefully we should be really close on that. So.
Any other questions? A real quick question. Yes. And the budget was for data collecting and stuff. I know Vivian was talking about maybe updating that or.
If you're asking about their licensing software, etc.
Absolutely.
That has become, and maybe JJ can speak more to this, or Amara when her turn comes, but I will only say that what was a division ask has sort of become a department ask.
Okay.
So on that, Mr. Chairman, Director Goodcheer, for the record, that kind of gets back into the whole state agency-wide inspection thing. And again, a lot of that was pulled out of the GovRec budget, but Amara may weigh into this a little bit. We are, again, looking at what fits for Bill's division, what we need for dairy, what we need for pesticide and inspection purposes in our row crops, for example, and then internally, how we funnel that and how we get those invoicing and billing things done. So we are making changes outside the budget within our fiscal contract.
Awesome. Thanks.
With some one-shot money as well.
Perfect.
So, Bernard Peterson, I had the same question for you, Bill. When it comes to the total units that are required to do your inspections, your gas pump inspections and your electrical charging station inspections across the state, I don't know what that total unit number is, but could you convert a certain number of those diesel trucks to either the Ford or Freightliner electrics and combine the electric and your gas testers on the same vehicle versus adding units?
I believe that will be one of the strategies that we employ. I mean, it also, one EV testing unit is not going to suffice for the state. I mean, it won't suffice for Las Vegas. And if we have that mounted, on an EV vehicle, then we are killing, 2 birds with 1 stone. And yeah, I'm certain that will be, part of the strategy for sure. For sure. Right now, I will say that we have enough problems getting conventional vehicles, much less trying to get our hands on EVs.
But there are only 2 states right now that are doing the electric charging station testing right now.
To any degree, yes, New York and California, yes.
So it's still a ways out.
Yeah, the rest of us are sort of in experimental mode. I'm sorry?
Could you contract that for a time?
I'm not even sure you can, this is so new,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the technology and the industry is so far ahead of any sort of regulatory work. I suppose it's possible, but I doubt it. I'm afraid. Yeah, there'll be a registered service agent, agent component to it.
Thanks you, Bill. Yeah, I appreciate it. Congratulations to your promotion.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No, good to go. All right, awesome. Thanks a lot. All right, we're moving on to agenda item number 8, plant health and compliance. Ashley.
Good morning. For the record, Active Ducting Division Administrator for Plant Health and Compliance. I'm going to start out by apologizing for the books that you have before you, but I'm going to add to it. There's a few pretty notable things that I want the board to be aware of. One of the big things is a bad word, emerald ash borer. It was detected in Oregon this year. It's a major concern for the West. It's mainly prevalent in the East. And frankly, in Oregon where it was detected, it's a bit of a losing battle. Once this pest is found, it's really trying to slow down its movement. They were very proactive in treatment and they're continuing to, but ash, sorry, I should have mentioned this, it targets ash trees. Ash is very prevalent in Oregon. It's prevalent along the river corridors, so definitely a concern for them. They're trying to slow it down so people can get ahead. So with that, we'll be working extensively with our communications team to kind of get the word out of what this thing looks like and potentially what we can do to try to keep it out of here. We're having some Western discussions on what each state's going to do and what some of our actions should be. This was actually a little bit of a discussion point at our last meeting pertaining to Utah. They have very strict compliance terms and pretty much don't allow most ash to come into their state. For this very reason, it's been a concern. So you'll be seeing some information come out. Our survey teams are certainly out en masse. And again, Oregon is still fighting as much as they can. Their ring of fire approach, they're trying to basically attract this species into target trees, inject pesticides in the surrounding trees to try to knock down the populations. And the most effective treatment is injection in the trees. But the one where they have found them, they've tried where the initial detections were found, they did cut and chip those trees. So it's pretty serious, not on the plant world. So more to come on that, but we're trying to get ahead of it. You guys have heard me like a broken record on red imported fire ant. It's not something we want. It's a growing issue. It has a pretty severe sting. We did detect it in a number of public parks in Southern Nevada this last year. Our survey teams, ironically, thus far in following up on those detections, have not found it. It does struggle in establishment, but as we've seen, things can change quickly, but we're so far so good. We're hoping we're able to kick it, but it certainly doesn't reduce the concerns of how it's getting here. So we're worried and we're continuing to work with California and Arizona as California compliance, some of their quarantine areas, it's certainly moved outside of us. So we're trying to look at that and minimize it from coming into our state. So those are kind of two of the big things. I did want to, Director Bukichia did reference some of the bills. There were a lot of plant-oriented ones. I thought we were going to get off easy since we only had one this go around, but we did not. So I'll just give a really quick overview on what has been going on in this legislature as it pertains to plant. AB 162, this was legislation that was trying to pass on and has, but initially the goal was to make restricted use or to make neonicotinoids and those that were specified in the bill as restricted use pesticides. There were some modifications to the bill. So now essentially it would these specific pesticides our classification of pesticides are still allowed to be used by agricultural producers, commercial agricultural producers, but they need to demonstrate that they have basically, a registration with the department, in order to buy it. There were some other exemptions that were allowed, for some structural purposes and so forth, but they were really aiming at trying to minimize the availability to general homeowners and people that may not necessarily be well trained, to try to limit the impact of this class of chemicals. So that's where it basically landed. Ag producers can still use it. There's a little bit of an extra step, but we're here to help along the way on that. AB 322. This is pertaining to kratom, and for a while I was quite afraid that we were going to have to become kratom experts, but it did actually move to the Department of Health. This was trying to get Department of Agriculture to regulate kratom processed products, and as you guys know, we don't deal with processed products, especially in the plant world, and this is really used for drug addiction therapy. So it since has moved to another division, and we've been able to get that where it should be, as it appears. SB 159, that the aim of that bill was to allow for folks that are in a training capacity that are applying pesticides to get out and do the work. So they were trying to provide opportunities for employers to get people out on the ground quicker, and B, just opportunities for employees as well. We had significant concerns in that one being people can already do that in a training capacity under supervision. The current laws already allow for that. But this was trying to direct where they wouldn't need to be overseen. So we did come to the ground of, we would look at regulations that would allow for this and allow it to be under direct supervision, meaning somebody doesn't necessarily have to be there watching them. As the current regulation stands, it's immediate. So that as it stands now, they do have to be there. So we're going to be looking at that, seeking some public comment, industry comment on how to meet in the middle and make sure that we're addressing public safety concerns, because that's obviously all of our concerns. And then SB 259, this one was trying to create some opportunities for wine and cider producers in the state. If they're incorporating local products, a certain percentage of local products into their wine or cider, it would allow them to sell a larger quantity on the retail. It actually went from 1,000 to 2,000, so fairly significant. This legislation did pass, and they'll have to register with the department. We'll have to make sure that they're getting those local ingredients, but it'll create some new opportunities, which is always exciting. So those are kind of it on that level. There are just a few things in the report that I wanted to highlight or provide some correction on. So moving to page 2, there have been some questions, as was mentioned, SB 13. That was a bill that was put forward by the department, and really just trying to update our language to reference EPAs. There were some changes in the last legislative session, basically to make sure that competency standards were up to par with new federal requirements. So we've been working on updating our exams, working on our education approach to meet the federal rules and make sure that we have the primary regulatory authority as the state on this level. So with that, thankfully, the feds are working with us in that we can just provide some training to existing licensees rather than them having to come in and retest. So we hit the ground running. We've done some recordings, we've done some trainings, and the recordings will be provided to Cooperative Extension to push out there and then take a quick quiz, and then folks' licenses are updated. We'll continue to do that. We want to make it as easy for industry as possible to hit those requirements, and we know sometimes it can be a lot. So we try to provide as much education, and if you guys are hearing anything that we can do better, please don't hesitate. I want to go into our crops program update towards the bottom of page 2. You'll see in that last bullet point, we referenced a slight decline. That is certainly an understatement, as we went from 6.38 million pounds exported to, we reduced to 6.38 from 7.97 million pounds. So it's pretty significant reduction this year in exported onions. We're seeing more domestic sales. So we do believe that's a fairly significant contributor. Also, we know industries had issues securing shipping containers on top of weather, moving freight, and this harsh winter. So With this data in mind, we will definitely provide comparisons as the next season comes underway with the challenges that were reported in IAM, and see kind of what we're seeing on the export level and see if we can get any information on domestics too. But just, you guys saw slight and probably scoffed when you looked at those because it's certainly not slight. Okay, moving to page 4 here. We've been doing a lot of work on the produce safety level. As you guys know, we do operate under a cooperative agreement with FDA to do Food Safety Modernization Act produce safety rule inspections for large farms in the state under that credentialing. However, a lot of our producers are exempt, they're under these production levels, so we want to make sure they have the same educational information on how to mitigate food safety risks. So we're doing a lot of work on both ends, trying to be there for our large producers that are having to meet these rules, and also for these smaller guys, and showing them where it can be fairly easily adapted or, you know, feasibly adapted in some ways. So we've done a lot of online stuff. We have tried to reach out and do one-on-one, but where I'm going with this is if you guys are hearing anything on how we can better reach our industry, a lot of times we're trying to get to the door and be a resource, but if you have suggestions on approach, we want to be that asset to them. So we certainly take feedback. And then jumping to hemp. I mentioned here that there were some issues, compliance issues, and that those that are producing hemp in the state do have to register with FSA. They have to register their acreage information among several other criteria. And USDA reached out to us that this was a major compliance issue, and we started to ask the question of, well, how are you presenting this to producers? How can we help? And it was fairly clear that the portal wasn't user-friendly, the questions weren't user-friendly, they didn't match what the feds were asking for. So we did hold a training in the fall of 2022 with producers, with FSA, to try to kind of help bridge that. Frankly, there's still issues on the USDA level of setting the expectation of what they want. So we're continuing to work on that and advocate for our producers and make sure that it's in a way that they're successful with. So just sharing that information. Okay, moving to page 5, just wanted to provide some clarification. You'll see in the samples that we had for our hemp producers, there's some statistics, and then we have our chemistry update. If you see something that seems to conflict between 2022, between the chemistry and the program report, it's mainly one reported on fiscal year, the other on calendar. My apologies, that should have been consistent, but that's where the shift is. You can, if you really want to look at what's happening in the program, this top table is going to be the most accurate. And it's still early on in 2023. We're really not hitting the ground on hemp samples till about August and September. So we'll get that data to you shortly after that timeline. Swear I'm almost done. Okay, noxious weeds, page 6. I do want to mention our enforcement team is out in the mass right now. And so any sightings that you're seeing, please give us a call. Encourage your folks to report anything. We do have people out in the field right now. They're wearing many hats, trying to do things strategically based on where they are. So the more information we get, the more strategic we can be and timely on looking at those infestations. You know, like everybody else, our staff are being diversified just to make sure we can carry the workload. We've had a lot of turnover in our nursery program. So it's all hands on deck for sure. And I also wanted to mention, in terms of resources to conservation districts, we absolutely agree. There's certainly not enough to support the work that they do. We have put in for several grants to try to provide some weed work. One of them was about $100,000, which we did not receive, but there's one we do feel is fairly promising, which is about $1 million. And part of that money would go to working with our conservation districts to help battle some of these noxious weeds issues. So we'll keep you apprised on what comes to that. And last thing, more on crickets. Save the best for last. It's been a strange year. Hatchings were late, as you can imagine, due to the weather. But we're getting calls certainly from all over the place. We are waiting on response from our plant protection quarantine partners with USDA. We're hoping to do some spray block this week. This next week. There's a lot that has to happen to make that happen. So we're trying to get all the data. We have our folks out surveying, showing this is where we're finding mass protections. These are the areas at risk, and this is the stage of the pest. All that has to come into play for us to be able to do the treatment. So hoping we can do some spray blocks this next week. But with that, our staff are out in the masses also pulling from different programs, whatever we need to do, baiting. We can do land baiting. So we're out, we're busy. If you hear stuff, give us a call.
Winnemucca,
we're working on it. That's the spray block.
almost coming to my house for the first time.
I don't like it. Stories about the hospital in Elko. Director Brown saying that they are actually hiring people to come and scrape off the Mormon crickets on the hospitals as they're coming in. So
they closed the Humboldt Museum on Thursday, I think it was, because they were just infested. You couldn't even get in the building. So wow.
Well, I was trying to convince our new state vet that they should be animals and they should. And that's all I have. Sorry, I know that was a lot, but I can answer questions.
Any questions for Ashley? Thanks, Ashley. I appreciate it. And you're busy and staffing and all that stuff. Good job. All right. Agenda item number 9. Doug Barrett, Planning Administrator. Right, you're good now. I'm good.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Doug Ferris. I'm the Deputy Director for Department of Agriculture, but JJ has granted me the, I don't know what I'll call it, but I get to still oversee animal industry. Yes, privilege. Yeah, so I get to provide that update today. I think under pending matters of significance, there's a few things that I'd hit on. One's a great thing that we now have a state veterinarian, so AJ and I are both very happy. I think the whole department is that we have somebody in that role now. One of the other things with my promotion to deputy director, we will be opening up the administrator position for this division. One of the things that kind of helps this position is it's historically, there was not a salary parity between the animal industry division administrator and the rest of them. That was something that we put forth in the budget this year, and we actually made it through and we got that. So now the animals industry administrator will have salary parity with the rest of the administrators. So we're kind of waiting for everything to finish with the legislature so we can get that posted and we have the accurate salary to put out there. Along with that, one of the huge things was we also requested a deputy administrator, and that was actually approved as well. With that division and sitting in there, there's over 90 staff members and I think around $8 million budget for that and all the different programs. So I think having a secondary administrative person in that will really help that. So those are a couple of the big things. One of these I had on here was that Dr. Greg Cuccio was still serving as the interim state veterinarian. He's happy to announce he isn't. We had the livestock enforcement or agricultural police officer position for the Ely area in that district. We were able to fill that with somebody who was already a law enforcement certified in the state of Nevada. So we have him out on his field training right now, probably another couple weeks, 3 weeks, he'll be out in the field. So that's been a position that I think was vacant for almost 3-4 years. I think it was 5. No, okay, yeah. So a long period of time that we didn't have anybody in that area of the state. Let's see, I'll just kind of hit some of the high points because there's a lot in here. As far as the livestock inspection program, the rebuilding of that, we do have the 30 state positions that I think all but one of those are filled right now for the brand inspectors. We also were able to advertise and we hired a brand inspector 3 position, which we were lucky in that case. It was actually Kaylee Kelly from our Elko office actually applied for it. She had previous brand inspector experience. Plus, she'd been in the office for the last few years, so she has a wealth of knowledge. She applied, and she's going to be our brand inspector 3. We also have to make offers for a brand inspector 2 position that will be located in this district and one other out of Elko. And along with that, we also still have 20 positions that we can fill through contracted services. And I think we have 17 of those filled now. We did some advertising, so hopefully we'll get some more of those. Under our partnership activities, we still in cooperation with USDA APHIS through veterinary medical services. We continue to work with them. Wild Horse Connection is for the Virginia Range Feral Stray horses, and I'll hit on that a little more since board member Frey asked about that, so I can go through that. The Wild Horse Connection cooperative agreement will be coming up for renewal in August of this year. They have for fiscal year 23, they've responded to 762 calls concerning horses in the Virginia Range area. And then along with that, we have American Wild Horse Campaign, who we have a cooperative agreement with as well. We entered into our 5th year on that in April of this year. And then just for some backup information, I know just to give some quotas as far as censuses that have been done historically through the Department of Agriculture for Virginia Range Feral Stray horses. We had 413 horses in 1997, 1,274 in 2002, 1,448 in 2008, 1,959 in 2014, 2,951 in 2018. And the most recent census was in 2022. We had 3,567 horses. So along with that, then I'll move on to our program updates. Commercial feed, we currently have 301 registered and active accounts. Livestock enforcement, our agricultural police officers have had 64 livestock investigations, 3 check sites. Out of those, they've issued 29 warnings issued and 2 misdemeanor citations. For livestock identification, we completed more than 11,500 brand inspections for almost 400,000 animals in the state in this fiscal year. Those brand inspectors that have performed those have worked over 10,000 hours and traveled over 200,000 miles in going across the state. We've also renewed over 3,500 brands for this year, and whoops, pardon me. So I think we had two lines there. So we've renewed 4,158 brands and issued 386 new ones for this fiscal year. Issued over 2,000 livestock movement permits, 41 agricultural license, and the 2023 livestock assessment notices are actually at state printing right now. We were hoping to have them out the beginning of this month, but it looks like it's going to be another week or so. Just with the delay, they're getting them printed and getting them out to everybody. For the predatory animal and rodent control program, park staff have provided technical assistance, non-lethal predator control throughout FY23, with the primary species of animals addressed during this time being 18% ravens, 18% coyotes, 81% ravens, and 1% mountain lions and striped skunks. Provided public outreach to almost 1,100 individuals or businesses, and the losses verified through this fiscal year for the state staff of that program were 181 goats, 83 lambs, 70 adult sheep, 4 cows, 192 calves, 1 llama, 194 chickens. And in addition to that, we also had 51 tons of livestock feed that were either consumed or contaminated by predatory animals and rodents. We do have 1 position open for that program still, the Fallon position, so we're currently recruiting to fill that. Moving on to veterinary medical services, investigations involving infected exposed herds across the state. As of May 23, we have 2 Nevada premises that were under quarantine and have since been released with no exposure to any other contact herds. The RFID program for the 840 tags and OCV. This fiscal year, we have delivered over almost 19,000 tags to producers across the state. See, we have the still pending investigation, which now that we have Dr. Pete on board, we have the detection of highly pathogenic avian influenza down in Nye County, which he'll be following up on. FY23, over 2,000 sheep and over 4,000 goats were inspected for the Tuvalu public livestock auctions for scrape EID compliance. And then actually it was pretty cool. So over in the last 2 months, we've had both Director Goycochea and Dr. Forbes in their veterinarian capacity that went to the Clark County Fair and the Nevada Junior Livestock Show to work with those participants of the 4-H kids. So it was great having them out there in that capacity. Investigations into illegal animal imports are ongoing. For FY23, the Animal Disease Lab has performed over 8,600 procedures, accounting for over almost 27,000 tests and services to date. ADL has performed West Nile virus surveillance testing on 929 pools. And then also the ADL continues to provide human rabies surveillance for the state of Nevada. To date, there's been 257 cases and 6 positive bats found in Clark, Douglas, and Washoe County. Most recently reported the first positive bat in 2023, the calendar year of 23, which was submitted by Clark County in May. See, in January of 23, we have ADL successfully passed the brucellosis serological proficiency testing PT issued by USDA. And then in May, we also had technical staff members successfully completed PT and rabies testing through Wisconsin State University. We hosted the Nevada Vector-Borne Association or Vector Control Association meeting here at the department in April of this year. And the ADL supervisor attended the 6th annual meeting for Pacific Southwest Center of Excellence in Vector-Borne Diseases later this year. It's a long report. Yeah. I'm not even reading it word by word. I can start doing that. I'm trying to show Bill up. I
can make mine as short as you need.
Okay, short jokes, Bill. For the dairy processing and auditing program, again, it's a whole page on here, so I'll hit some of the high points on it. Staff completed 39 food manufacturing processing inspections, 8 re-inspections, and 88 dairy inspections. 55 warnings were issued for compliance notifications. 9 complaints received and investigated. Staff inspected 28 milk plant samplers and 41 bulk haulers. 9 plants, farm ratings were completed. There were 400 brucellosis samples drawn, 56 consumer inquiries investigated, 10 store checks, 12 food safety plan reviews, and 32 label reviews. Auditors conducted the price surveys and general store checks investigations on 77 locations. 446 investigative remittance and closeout audits were completed. And throughout these audits, they yielded over $44,000 in remittances that were either due, past due, or late. See, dairy distribution program, we currently have 246 licensees. And then renewals for the dairy's distributor licenses that's been initiated for this year. And dairy outreach program, which is kind of in coordination with Farm Bureau on some of these. So we have Melissa, who basically hasn't been out in probably 3 years, I think. So after the director and I rebuilt some things for Melissa, we were mechanics for a day. We got her back out and she's been at 8 events so far this year. So that was huge. And before I close on this, the only thing I'd like to say that, like Ashley was talking about having a book, I'm just would like to personally thank everybody, all the staff in the animal division, because looking at this on a computer and going over it, it didn't look that big. And when I printed it out, I was like, these guys were busy. And so I commend them for that. So with that, I'm open to any questions, if there are any questions, and then we can move to Shada for the next part.
I got two small questions. Doug,
Yes.
Bernard Peters from the record. Do you have the ability to release the name of the officer that you hired for the Wi-Fi Academy?
Yeah, I can. It's Leonard Lake.
And it's actually for District 2, not White Pine County.
District 2.
Right, it's a district, so he will be based out of Eureka.
Out of Eureka.
Right, but that'll all be his district.
And then on page 2 in your report, you reported the total brand inspections for the state during the 12 months, the last fiscal year, 200 or 393,000 brand inspections. Can you break that out for cattle and horses?
We can, but I don't have it broke out in this, so if you'd like, I can get that
Okay,
information.
thank you.
And that was actually, it's just for fiscal year, it's not its full 12 months yet, so, well,
It's getting closer.
yeah, it's close. But
Yeah, pretty close now.
when we prepared this report though,
Right.
because we prepared these a few weeks in advance, so yeah, there'll be a few more, but if you'd like that, I can break that out.
Okay, thank you.
I've also got a couple of questions. Dwayne Combs for the record. On page 3, the predatory animal and rodent control.
Yes.
Says 51 tons of livestock feed were consumed. Are elk considered predatory animals, or are elk considered rodents?
I'll refer that to Director Janae.
The other question that I had on a more serious note, we've discussed before about making sure our ag enforcement officers have the right to have the same retirement and benefit perks as any other law enforcement officer. Are we getting closer on that?
I would say it's still in the process. So we've gotten over quite a few hurdles. The only one left is the police fire retirement portion. So anybody that was hired, like the latest ag police officer that we hired, already had law enforcement experience and was in the system. So he comes over with a police fire retirement. We do have 2 of our officers that don't qualify because they came over without the police fire retirement. So I actually have an email up right now to where I'm working with our ag police officers themselves. They're trying to draft some stuff, or they're going to. Once we get that completed, I know they have the Nevada Police Union is who they also belong to. They're members of that now. They've offered to assist them as well. And so once they get everything drafted, we'll be able to take that to the police fire retirement board and propose that be implemented to where they come over, whether they're hired like an NDOW officer or anybody else, they come over with that police fire retirement. So it is in process still.
Okay, yeah, I just want to put that needle. I see those guys backing up our troopers all the time, and we don't treat them. We expect them to take the same risks as our troopers, but we don't want to give them the same benefits. So
absolutely, and we're in full support of that. We would like to see that get changed as well.
So that was all. Thank you, Doug.
Any other questions? Any comments? Good enough. Thank you.
Want me to stay up here? Yeah.
Oh, I think
I'm just gonna look to you anyway.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
If everybody has electronic devices, try to turn them off. We appreciate that. I know we got a ton of them. Thank you. Just silence them. All right, we're gonna have the next one is part of that animal. We're gonna do any baby inspection program overview.
You're saying.
By Shada.
Yeah.
You start, that part.
It's not quite noon yet, so I'll start with a good morning. Good morning, everyone. Shada Sanjita for the record. I am the meat and poultry inspection program project manager. I have a few program updates that I would like to share with everyone. A really big step that we have completed. I got the first draft of revisions for language and NAC 583 over to USDA for their review. They fully reviewed it, and our USDA program auditor stated that the language that I have included in my draft mirrors that of FSIS. And they did not have any suggestions for edits or revisions. They're quite happy that the language mirrors what they require, and I would like to highlight that it is important for our language to mirror what FSIS requires, because this program has to operate in an at least equal to capacity. This standard requires that this program is not less effective than those standards adopted by the federal inspection program. Moving on, I've teamed up with the University of Nevada, Reno Extension to develop more program-based educational content, because I feel that it is important to educate our community in what this program is and what it does. Our first event, we will be hosting a hazard analysis and critical control point workshop in July. This event will span over 2 days. It will be on July 17th and July 18th, and will cover such topics as what is a hazard plan and why is it required? What are the 3 hazards that must be analyzed to do a hazard plan, and the principles of hazard? We will also explore the steps needed to develop a hazard plan and the real life application. Sometimes there is a bit of difficulty bridging the gap between the science and the application of the sciences, and that's something that we really want to work on and make sure that folks, if they're going to be working in these kinds of facilities, they understand what a hazard plan is and what it requires. Some great news, a program educator has been hired. She comes to us with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture and a Bachelor of Science in Education. She has prior experience in teaching agricultural topics, and she has begun work on several projects, including the first draft of the materials that we will be presenting at the hazard workshop. She has put together and mailed out informational mailers about the Nevada State Meat and Poultry Inspection Program, and she has followed up with a phone call to those that she has sent the information out to identify potentially interested parties. I had her analyze the other 29 state meat and poultry inspection programs and their educational materials, as well as the accessibility to said materials, so that we could determine what would be the best materials for Nevada to develop and how we will offer them on our website or an office, or however folks want to be able to obtain these materials. We also attended the Nevada Field Day and Ag Expo that was hosted by the University of Nevada Reno Experiment Station, and we shared more information about this program with interested members of the community. And just some upcoming events is just the HACCP workshop in July with the University of Nevada Reno Extension, and anyone's welcome to join it and come on over to it.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right, so a couple things, Peterson, in regards to your question, this is an addition to our custom exempt, and it will not replace custom exempt. So the individual in your area with this concern will continue to be able to operate as custom exempt, which means that he will be able to, if Ms. Lackey has a beef or a lamb or something she owns and wishes to have processed for her own consumption or that of non-paying guests, she may do so. And so there will be no difference there. This will be additive. I would highly encourage him, and I think you will find as this goes forward, I believe those smaller plants will probably come along to the state inspected, not USDA, but the state inspected, and then you can actually package and market those within the boundaries of the state of Nevada. And so you, for example, if you wish to have a branded product, you could have it processed there. You could sell your branded product through that plant. You could not do a branded product now if you was not compliant with either USDA or RDA regs. And then the other reason I'm up here, partway through the legislative session, we found out that we lost $300,000 of money that we were going to use to get this off the ground and running through FY26, calendar year 26 actually, and that was ARPA money. And that was swept away from us. We could have panicked. I'll be honest with you. $300,000 isn't a lot of money in this budget. It's a lot of money in this program. We're trying to get it off the ground where our fees are smaller right now, so these guys can get going and get moving, and then it will become self-sustaining over time. If we had to start today and it had to be completely fee-based and going forward, we couldn't put those fees big enough to run the program. So we panicked a little bit with the loss of $300,000. Thankfully, Jake Dedecker, the Director of Extension and Associate Dean for Engagement at UNR, and his team have been working on a Southwest food center grant through the USDA, and they were successful. They were one of 12 in the nation that got grants awarded to them. NDA is got a sub award for that. So I gave up $300,000 and managed to get 1.3 million out of that. And that takes us out through 28, not 26. So we kind of changed the scope of the work as it was proposed originally in that grant. And we're bringing in compliance support specialists, which will kind of be our inspectors, we hope, as we get started and help stand that up on what that'll look like. And then a program outreach educator. Probably what we'll do is we'll end up Shada's position shifting over to this money, freeing up the money we're spending on her in another budget, and we can put that out into our inspectors that will be going to these plants as we get it up and going. So that was a little bit of good news that I wanted to share with you. We got creative and we got lucky, and we just heard this week, we don't know exactly when that money will be coming, but we expect it by the 1st of July. So we will continue to expand this program. Doug and myself and Shada yesterday kind of finished up some language. LCB had some questions that they wanted answered, 4 questions, I believe, that were on there in order for us to go forward with workshop and hearing. So Shada got me those answers last night. I'll get them to Doug. We'll get them over to LCB. They'll give us the green light. So be looking for a couple of workshops to be coming to an area near you over the summer. And then we will have a hearing. And it will be most likely during a board meeting, so that we can all be here and listen to it. And then we hopefully will adopt those regulations. And by late this fall, I want to have an in-state meat inspection program up and running in the state of Nevada. That is our goal.
Summer or fall?
By this fall, we'll have it by the time we get through workshop and hearing, and then we have to get it approved through the Ledge Commission. So I'm being realistic, but if we can get it done in 9 months from January, I'll be pretty happy. We got the hammer down.
And so something like that, JJ, would allow us as producers in state to work with a local guy to package and then sell that product like to my neighbors.
Yes, sir. It'll be in state. So right now, I'm sure most of you are aware that we have some, and in the public comment this morning, Holly mentioned Tooele Valley Meats in Tooele, Utah. They do a lot. We have some lockers in southern Idaho. We're losing that money because they're USDA inspected. We've only got 3 in the state. They're not being able to handle it. These will be in state only, so you can't sell it out of state. But if you want to work with someone that is certified under this program, once we get it done, by all means, and you can do that. You can sell it. You can give it to our food banks as well if you want to sell into our home feeds Nevada.
Just read my mind.
And that was what I was gonna go next. Can we use this as an avenue to get some more local protein?
Yep, absolutely. Through home feeds Nevada, for example.
So Bernard Peterson for the record, I got a question for Shane and JJ. In your creativity of creating the program of inspection, when you look at the broader scope of like EQIP money through the FSA office, other grant monies and other monies that are coming into the state for the typical farm programs, could there be some allocation to young guys that want to start up a processing business? You know, like the one that I use is a single proprietor guy. There's 2 people that work there. They're busy all the time. And most of the smaller communities in the state have lost that guy. They've closed down everywhere because of regulation and age and the lack of capital. And capital is a big thing on any state. I know there was discussion in Lincoln County, but capital is a big deal. And you know, we buy pivots for farmers all over the state. Could we help a small processor build a new processing plant?
So I'll take it if you want. I actually tried to get an ask through the Farm Bill for something similar to this. As you can imagine, because the Farm Bill is a nationwide bill,
right?
It was met with some hesitancy, shall we say. So asking for a carve out to go into competition with USDA plants and Packers was something that we learned very quickly. We were going to get our nose bent over. But USDA rural development is the avenue, Bernard, that we will go through to get that money. So we have, that money is there, it is coming in, and they are obvious. We've had those conversations, and they are a partner we have worked with in the past.
Have to ear tag it for that.
We will continue to work through USDA rural development funds in order to stand these up.
So Jim Snyder for the record. HACCP principles apply to produce industry and various other segments. Is there any coordination with those other segments or opportunities for efficiency with your trainings and such?
The training that we're going to be offering is going to be strictly based on meat production. There's quite a bit of offerings online for HACCP in produce and HACCP in retail environments, but nothing quite in state for folks that are working in the meat industry. So I'm working on bridging that gap and having that kind of offering available to the meat industry.
And Sierra, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know last month we had a couple of those trainings too online, correct? I remember in our social media, we pushed those out.
Yeah, so there are monthly food safety workshops, discussions, Q&As. Those are typically on the Friday of every Friday of the month. So those topics vary month by month. I'm not sure what topic we're covering this month, but those are available. And I know the crew, I think the Division of Plant Health and Compliance, they have other resources available as well.
So would you say there's not a lot of duplication of effort there?
No, this effort for the HACCP workshop that I'm working on is not duplicative of any offerings in the state right now.
Okay, Jim, the reason is we've never had this for the meat. We want to focus on it first. Now going forward, by all means, we will definitely be working with Ashley Shop as we do those. We really want to get these guys the education they need now for the meat side of it, the meat and poultry side. Sorry, I keep skipping poultry for some reason. I could have done without poultry respect.
HACCP is a requirement through USDA. Any facilities that are trying to be under USDA inspection, they have to develop and validate a HACCP plan. Now, because the state program is developing and being worked as an at least equal to program, we are also requiring that these facilities develop and validate a HACCP plan, which is why I think it's important to offer this type of training. If it's a requirement, I think we should have the education on it, and that's something that I'm working on. And then if I may go back to your question, USDA themselves, they do run a few grant programs that producers that are trying to start up may apply for and be granted through USDA directly. If they're looking not to just work with the Department of Agriculture to get grant funding, they can go further to the USDA and apply through them. I know one of them was called the local MCAP grant. It would be on USDA's website under the meat section. And they have quite a few offerings for folks that are trying to start up and get funding to be able to either develop their facility or modernize their facility. And on top of that, I wanted to mention that with a state program, USDA matches half of the program's funding that's needed. So we'll get 50% back of whatever we spend through USDA's contributions.
To run the program. So our 1.3 million will become 2.6 million.
Right, all the Woody Worthington for the record, for all the inspections, everything that goes on, that's pretty awesome. And the bug that's incorporated with that would be a USDA bug, right? Or a state USDA bug.
It would be a state bug that would be put on. And rather than saying US inspected and passed, it would more than likely say NV inspected and passed, which will designate that it can only be sold within Nevada's boundaries.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments?
Good job.
That's awesome. Great job.
Shayla did it.
He helps. It's a group effort.
Yeah. So for the record, Doug Ferris, I just wanted to come back to circle back to Mr. Peterson's question. So Officer Knight's actually watching, so he pulled up the information for me. This is out of our electronic brands program of how many animals were inspected between cattle and horses. So it doesn't include the public livestock auctions. But since July 1, 12,427 horses, 344,986 cattle.
And again, I want to reiterate what Doug said. This does not include what goes to our 2 sale bars. Those are not in this program. So you could add that many more.
So a question.
Yes.
For the record. That's branded horse. It's not, that has nothing to do with BLM, wild horses, anything, transport.
It has nothing to do with BLM. It's for just horses in the state. Yeah, not branded, but brand inspected. So if there was a brand inspection completed on a horse, that's how many.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Doug. All right, we're going to move to agenda item number 10, administrative services. Amara.
So I'm Amara Beadle, Chairman of the Board. Thank you for having us today. Admin Services Administrator. I also have Michael Markovich with me. He acts kind of as our finance manager. So in case you guys have super in-depth questions. I'm also not great at presentation, so I'll keep it short and sweet and like Doug over there. So in admin services, we house a few different programs. We have our trade and economics development, our communication programs, IT, as well as our fiscal department. And I oversee the IT. We also have facilities. Sorry, don't mean to lead Greg out of that one. Oversee IT, fiscal, and facilities directly, and then we have trade and economics and communications with Sierra and Dylan and their teams. So in trade, we have done quite a bit since our last meeting. Dylan and his team have gone out and tried to really promote Nevada agriculture throughout Asia and the Middle East. He's done quite a few conferences, gone out and shared what we do here in Nevada. And he's also doing, and we're hosting the NAMO. It's the National Agricultural Marketing Program here in July. I think over at the GSR. So that will be a great program for us to promote what Nevada does in agriculture. Sierra has done quite a bit with marketing and news promotions. And I encourage you guys to kind of flick through these when you get the PDF version of that and look at these articles that we have promoted. We've also done the 2023 NBA biannual report for you guys, as well as the craft beverage passport program has gone out for 2023, went out in March. We sent out 10,000 passport booklets statewide. And if you go in any brewery or any other craft beverage place, you'll see a little stuff up there if they're a member of it. So it's kind of cool to have representation up there for us. We've also updated the 2023 senior farmers market coupon books and supporting material, and those have started to go out as Patricia had mentioned in her area. And then we also held Ag Day at the legislature in April. It was originally slated for February, but that was a snow day, unfortunately, so nobody could get there. But we did speak to some of the individuals about agriculture in the state and just kind of represented what we do here in Nevada for agriculture. As far as staffing, we are pretty filled up in administration. There were some positions listed here. We have filled our accounting assistant 3 position, and we're also working on our grants project analyst 2 position, which should be interviews, I think, today next Friday. So we should have that position hopefully filled with a good qualified person to help us manage our grants. And then our admin assistant 4, which works with Doug and JJ and their team. Lastly, I wanted to share, because I remember when JJ was promoted to director or chosen as director, you guys had asked for some financial information. And so this is kind of our start of what we do here on the financial side. Unfortunately, we did not have the full budget out because legislature hasn't fully developed our budget, but this is what we have asked for in our budget and what the governor's office has promoted. So this is basically what we'll have for the next biennium, if it'll work. So just kind of an overview about what Nevada agriculture or state of Nevada does for the budget process. We do it on a biennial basis. So when we budget for 2-year increments. Our fiscal years run from July 1st through June 30th. And so this new budget will start on July 1st of this year and run through June 30th of 2026. We begin the budget process early in even number years. So we will begin early next year, and we have to have a plan to the GFO in September of that year so that they can go through and work with us to develop our financial ability. They approve it. It goes through that office, and the Legislative Council Bureau is with the legislature. So they actually approve the budget and supply it to the legislatures. The state of Nevada has 5 revenue sources. General fund is basically the overall revenue source for tax dollars, fees, and other non-tax sources that come into the state. We have highway funds, which is usually revenue from fuels, motor vehicles. There's other funds in forms of licensing, fees, that sort of thing from other agencies. Balance forward is if we have $20,000 in one budget account for this year, we can balance it forward to use it for the next year. And then there's federal funds, which is all your grant money we talk about all the time. And NDA is an executive branch agency. So as an executive branch agency, there are other agencies that are not executive branch agencies, and which means they don't go through the governor's office for approval. Those are considered boards, like the Board of Medicine and those sorts of items that they're there. We are a very heavily federal funded agency. About 88% of us are as federally funded compared to the less than 1% we get from general funds. Most of our budget is food and nutrition, although I will say that those are mostly pass-through dollars, which means we get the money and those dollars are passed through to other entities such as food banks or schools. Division of Admin Services. So we centralize all of the budgeting, payroll, information technology, communication, and economic development for NDA. We are basically a cost allocated budget, which means each budget account, such as animal plan, contributes to our budget because we support the entire agency. We do have some federal funds, which is your meat inspection program, as well as a few fees, which are pamphlets we supply, those sorts of things. This is just kind of an overview of expenses. You will see in most of these budget accounts, the primary expenses is personnel expense. I think with any business, it is usually personnel, which is what we go over. Animal industry, they are primarily fee funded and general funded. They do have some federal funds, but it's not their primary source. It's mostly fees, which is 66%. And again, you'll see most of it is personnel, and then the enforcement unit is their main expense on these areas. Division of Food and Nutrition. Again, this is mostly a pass-through entity, so those high dollar amounts you'll see almost federal funding, $550 million is mostly for those school lunches, pass-through to food banks, those sorts of things. And the fee part of that, just so you guys know, is what we get from payment from the government to actually distribute that. Again, primarily shipping expenses here with minimal personnel because they don't have as large personnel items as most other divisions do because we, again, just pass it through. Measurement standards is, from my point of view as a finance person, an easy one because they're all fees. So they don't have any federal funding whatsoever. And so they all get whatever they go out and inspect and charge for those inspections and any other items that they do, they're all fee funded. They are also heavily into personnel expense. Plant health and compliance. They are also very heavily fee funded with heavily federal funds as well. Plant division has numerous grant programs. They don't equal as much as their fees collected because of those pest fees and the fertilizer fees. And again, personnel expenses, they're most heavily produced on. So I will leave it to you guys to give us questions. I think as we go through these board meetings, we can dig into these a little bit more and really give you kind of a more cohesive view of each budget account as we go through and take them piece by piece so that you guys get that fundamental aspect when we actually have a budget. So any questions?
Okay, Mr. Chair, so we are committed to that. As we get our next quarterly meeting, we'll pick 2 or 3 of our 5 divisions. And at that point, we'll come in with, here's what our budget was, here's where we are today. But we don't have that yet. So once we do, we'll show you that. In addition, at the next meetings, we'll probably do 2. So what I'd like to do is show how we ended up closing out the year at our next quarterly meeting. We'll have that closed out. Obviously, fiscal year ends in this month. Then Mark will be working for the next 45 days, trying to get it all straight and figure out, you know, how we balance those books up and make sure we did it right. Historically, we've had a problem, and not just in the last few years, but Department of Ag has had a problem for a decade plus at times with trying to make it flow right. And so we're rebuilding it. We're doing it completely different. And we're going to make sure that we get it done timely. Part of that wasn't maybe unpopular, but you know, we shut off all purchasing already. It's emergency purchases only for this month. All our purchase cards we cut off, minus a couple for emergency type situations. And again, we want to be at the end of the month and we want to be done because that's how you run a business. Agreed.
And I'm sorry, one thing, if you guys want more information on budget close, I will allow Margo to give a little bit more update on how we close our budgets. And that, as Director JJ has said, that we are in the middle of that. We started pretty heavy in January trying to clean up our budget accounts and moving anything that wasn't categorized to where it needed to be, moving those and doing that. It was a significant amount of journal vouchers or GVs is what we call them, and moving all of those dollar amounts to the correct place so that we can balance those budgets. But Marco, if you want to give kind of an overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Mark Markovich for the record. So basically, I'll keep this at a high level. The way the state fiscal year close works is we have to basically balance our revenue with our expenditures. Historically, we had a lot of issues with balancing the federal revenue with the expenditures that were funded with that revenue. Most recently, we closed last fiscal year by carrying over undrawn amounts in the federal funds, which in theory is not a problem because the federal fiscal year works on a different calendar than a state fiscal year. However, that impacts our next year's finances, and definitely when you're building the budget, impacts that baseline for the budget and what revenue can be expected. The goal this year is we already communicated to all of our subrecipients for the grants that we need bills received no later than July 21st. So we have sufficient time to pay those, bring the federal funds in so we can reconcile the revenue and expenditures and hopefully be at the 0 point. If we overdrew the funds, we'll return them back. If we need to bring more funds, we will do that. So when we close specific budget accounts that have a federal revenue, they will zero out between the revenue and expenditures, and we are starting the new year clean without any negative or positive numbers going in as a carryover balance. Our fee accounts always have a carryover because we are usually trying to have a larger revenue than expenditures. So any fees that are carried over will go into our reserve category, and they will sit in the reserve category unless we need to pull the money from the reserve category to pay for some unexpected expenses or to support a specific program. General fund, usually it's a really minimal. We have a couple of budget accounts that receive the general fund dollars due to need to match federal dollars. So those are usually zeroed out. We don't have any general fund revenue left over. If it happens, that usually gets reverted back to the state, the general fund, and it gets reappropriated the following budget year. So what we started several months ago is, as Amara pointed out, to basically clean the incorrectly coded expenses. And those are not intentionally incorrectly coded. We have a so-called snatch and grabs, which some state agencies are allowed to basically just go and take the money from your account for specific services, like the Attorney General's office can basically do the snatch and grab for their services. EATS can do the same thing for providing services for our network. And there is several other agencies like HR, administrative services. They basically can go and just take the money, and they basically don't code it properly. So you just see the line item, let's say $5,000 removed, category can be wrong, job numbers doesn't exist in that charge, the GLs are wrong, general ledger numbers are wrong. So we have to clean that and basically align that with how the revenue came to the budget. We started back in February, March, slowly cleaning up those. We're in a pretty good shape as of Monday. We have a few more budget accounts that we need to clean up, make sure that those uncoded expenses are properly coded. And then we are basically working with our federal team on doing the draws bi-weekly on a federal grants. We are planning on switching that to the weekly draws come next week, because we want to make sure that we can bring money from the federal government quickly and offset those expenditures. The goal is to have everything closed clean by August 15, August 20th. In theory, we have through basically August 30th to close the fiscal year, but the plan and the goal is not to wait the last minute to close any of the budgets. We will be going to August IFC to ask for realignment of some expenditure categories. We have to bring additional authority to offset some unexpected expenses. Those will be offset either with additional federal funds authority or with our reserve dollars that we have at disposal for something like that. One of the examples is we had a lot of vehicle repairs this year, this fiscal year, especially our semi trucks. They're getting outdated, they're getting old. Some of them are pushing over 500,000 miles. So it's time where they start breaking, and the budget was built 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago. So nobody could actually expect that the prices will go high, that the cost of fuel, diesel will go that high compared to back in 2020 when we actually built this budget. So those are reasons we have to kind of realign that authority so we can successfully close the fiscal year. So the goal is to close clear, not have any issues. That's a goal. We'll see if we're able to do that, but we'll be more than happy to provide the feedback and update once we close the fiscal year. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes,
I don't have a question, but I'd really like to thank you for your presentation, because it is well needed. And I appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Great job. TikTok, right? Thank you there. Thank you. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. All right, agenda item number 11, we're going to go over public comment. One person. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Jim Snyder. I wanted to acknowledge a couple of other people and entities helping fairly in the flood situation in Lyon County. And that would be Bert Ryan at the Walker River Irrigation District. As well as a number of other farmers and producers in the area who contributed efforts and equipment to that. Thank you.
Any comment on that?
So I just like to give one piece of public comment. First, I want to thank the board for the opportunity. I know I thanked you guys in January, but the last 5 months has been quite a ride already. And by all means, I want you guys to know that the door is open. The phones are always on. So if we're not doing something, I need to know. If we're not being responsive, I need to know. And in closing, I want to thank the staff. We've got one heck of a good staff, and we're putting some people in place. We're poaching from other state entities and actually from local government. It feels good to be a place where people want to work. And I am confident we are building a team that over the next few years, we're going to do some great things for agriculture in Nevada. So thank the team, especially those of you that are, have to deal with me every day up close and personal. I know it's not always easy. And thank you guys.
Thank you, JJ. I appreciate it. So we're going to do a roll call before we adjourn. So we're going to start out there in the internet. We'll start. Pete, you want to start us off? Are you still here?
I think we only need to know if there's anybody who has joined us newly.
Yeah, and did you see that?
Only one person, and they've included their name here, so I think we're okay.
Perfect. And then one person that's not there is Brooke.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're good to go on that. So I appreciate everybody's time hanging in there with the weather's ups and downs, and then we'll have some lunch too, and then we have to finish off the donuts as well. But I appreciate everybody's time hanging there, and I'm super excited to see.
And we did extend an invitation if anybody hasn't been through the agency, hasn't been through the building. Grab a sandwich, eat a little bit. I'm not in any hurry. By all means, we like to take you around, show you the lab, show you the building. I don't know if everybody's had that opportunity, especially some of the newer board members that came on during the pandemic might not have had that opportunity. We'll go back and we'll look at measurement standards in the back, and we'll look through our labs here in our office space in the main building as well. So after we eat, we're happy to take a little walk through if anybody wants to stick around.
Awesome. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, where's our lunch? I think lunch, but I don't think so.